Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
That the January 28th, 2025 Budget Council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Julik. All in favor? Carried. Consent agenda. Assuming we don't have any of that, so we're going to move on to new business. Proposed 2025 capital and special projects listing. Report dated January 28, 2025 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the proposed 2025 capital and special projects listing. Recommendation, Councillor Julik.
That council waive policy E08, council budgeting process that requires council to meet no later than the fourth Monday of January to consider capital projects for the 5-year financial plan.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Second recommendation. Councillor Norbury.
The council received the draft 2025 capital and special projects report for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor So. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. Do we want to just start from number one, administration?
We can.
Or we have-
I'm just going to ask staff. Ms. Scott, is there a presentation or an overview from staff? Or we're good to start this and work our way through?
We have not prepared a presentation. However, if council would allow, the Director of Finance can provide council with a brief summary of what we're looking at.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you today is 32 projects to be looked at and considered. Staff have prepared this. None of these projects will impact 2025 taxation. But I also want to bring to council's attention that there's several projects that are multi-years. So if it's approved by council, you're approving not just 2025, you're approving 2026 and 2027. So those multi-year projects you want to consider in full for those full 3 years and what the impact of those full 3 years could be. I believe there's 2 projects starting in 2025 that have multi-years, and then there's 1 project starting in 2026 that has multi-years. So I just wanted to highlight those for council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. I didn't have any questions on number one, so I'll have number two, so I'll wait until if anybody has any questions for number one.
Okay, for administration, number 1, Councillor Julik.
Looking at number 1, the sidewalk project, we had an amount that we were holding off until we heard about a grant. And I was wondering if it made more sense to budget for that amount rather than count on the grant. And what would that, and if that was possible, because I think that that makes more sense, that we hold off on something else in case, because this project needs to be done without question. And so, yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, Ms. Scott, if you can just explain under line 1 there, it's under the other amount.
The amount included in the spreadsheet is the full amount. We haven't included if we get the grant, that will be a bonus, but we have not calculated that grant into the proposed funding for the entire project.
So this sidewalk project is not grant dependent, as mentioned further in the agenda. There's some that have grant beside them. If the grant is not successful, those would not proceed, is my understanding.
That's correct.
Correct. To your question, Councillor Julik.
I think so.
Are you good? If not,
So right now, the total amount, when I look on the supplemental item, that does not include, that means we are budgeting that full amount and it will be a surplus. Like if that money comes in from the grant, then that would come out of what we're budgeting for.
Ms. Scott?
Yeah, so we are budgeting for the full cost.
Okay.
And how we're proposing to pay for it, the grants that are listed there are that is funding that we already have. Those are not grants that we have applied for. So with the part that's coming out of the, for example, the PRA funding, or the part that's coming out of the gas tax, et cetera. So if we were successful in the BC Active Transportation Grant application, then it would reduce the amount that's expensed to these other pools of money.
Okay, good. I totally misunderstood that when I read it, so thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, any other questions in regards to administration on 1, 2, or 3? Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Cock. I had some questions on number 2, replacing of the MAIS software. I do see that it is 22 years old, and I can definitely appreciate trying to operate on a 22-year-old system. You know, like, what was that in Windows? Windows Vista? I can only imagine trying to run things back then. The question I had is in regards to, first off, I guess, is this industry standard? So if things change, you know, a few years down the road, we're not going to be getting a new system in 2 years. This should potentially last us another 10, 15, 20 years. What's life expectancy? Is this industry standard?
Ms. Scott?
Yeah, so even though we have been using maize for 22 years, that doesn't mean it hasn't been updated throughout the years to keep up with what one would expect out of a municipal accounting software. The issue that we are having with maize, and the issue that a lot of other municipalities that are using maize are having, is and maybe it's a result of some of those updates, but there's definitely a lot of back-end issues with maize that a lot of municipalities are having that maize seems unable to be able to remedy and fix. And because a lot of those back-end issues, it is really causing a lot of redundancy in things that we are having to enter into the system. There's a lot of extra staff time involved in some of that. We're definitely very frustrated with maize. Currently, maize is the only way we can get maize to operate in a way that we can use it is that we have had to start using an old, outdated server from 2012 in order to even have maize be operational, which is not recommended at all, because that server now that we are having to use is not, we don't have my mind's drawing a blank. Sorry, and maybe we can, because my mind's drawing a blank and I can't think of the words, that perhaps the Director of Finance can jump in there and give you the words that I'm drawing a blank on right now. The support, but yes, sorry, but again, the Director of Finance can.
Yeah, it's not the actual physical server that it's on. It's on a new server, but it has to be on the old 2012 server software, and that software has no longer supported. So if that software goes and it falls apart, we are unable to run maize and we lose the data and everything else. We've now we do backups to ensure that we have backups up to the current date, but there is glitches that happen, and payroll has to sometimes be entered 4 or 5 times. We can go home at night and all of a sudden we come back in the next morning and everything we did the day before has disappeared. So we've been working with maize several times for finding out what the challenges are. This supplemental is to go out to market to find a software and, yeah, for another 20 years, hopefully work with one software company that goes through, because yes, over time they tend to update their software and things, but I will also let you know maize payroll has not been updated in 20 years. So that actually is a very archaic payroll system. It goes almost back to DOS base.
And so again, to provide some additional, to the rest of your question about what industry standard is, there are several municipal software accounting providers that different municipalities use throughout the province. Maize is one that a lot of people use. VATM is one that a lot of people use. There are lots of accounting software providers that we can look at to make sure that the one that we are choosing is going to serve our needs for the next 20 years.
Follow up?
Yeah, so one of the comments was we're gonna put it out to market. So are we going out to like an RFP process for this? We're shopping around? Is that what I gathered from that?
That's my understanding. Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that answer. The other question I have is the continual cost listed here. Is this in alignment with our current costs, or would this be an additional cost we're gonna be taking on?
Ms. Scott?
With all municipal accounting software, you do have to pay annual licensing fees. So this would be the annual licensing fee for the new software instead of what we're currently paying Maze. If there are other additional costs, again, I'll ask the Director of Finance if she can provide additional information, if there would be additional costs for a new software.
Yeah. Just to let council know, this is the full cost of what the licensing is. It's slightly higher than what we are currently paying for Maze. It's not as significant. I think it's about $5,000 per more, but I wanted to give council the full picture of what the costing would be moving forward with this other software. And do realize that while these numbers are in and guaranteed when you first start on for a few years, they tend to go up over the years and get more and more expensive.
Thank you for that explanation, because if it was from nothing to the listed amount, explaining that, nope, it's just a little bit of a bump, fair enough. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. I've coupled myself the same concern. I just want to make sure that we are shopping around. We haven't selected an individual. Ms. Scott?
No, we have not selected an individual. We would absolutely, during the RFP process, entertain all kinds of applications and figure out which was the best option for the district.
Okay. And I know we have Questica and stuff like that, and we're going to make sure that still is able to mitigate any issues there?
Yeah, Questica is our budgeting software, so whatever new municipal accounting software we use, we want to make sure it's fully compatible with Questica. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because that one was I don't think that one's that old. I can't remember 100%. But I know previously we obviously did a search and changed out previously. And same with upgrades. And obviously, we're aware that this might be that old, but there's been upgrades between the time it was first brought in by the DTR compared to what it is today. But we'd be looking at doing that again with a new service provider. There's still going to be updates, whether it's a 10-year mark or whatever that mark is going to be. There's going to be needed to be upgrades. People just need to be aware of that. This isn't a one-time buy-in.
The updates are part of our licensing. So when they do upgrades or changes to the accounting software, they roll out those updates as part of the ongoing support that they provide us in those licensing and support fees.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying, I get the update part of that, but sometimes there's a higher update because it's aging itself out that it needs to have another back office added to it or whatever. But when we go with one, obviously we've been with one for over 20 years. So we've done other backroom changes to tag into the same system, but it costs us more in capital to do it throughout the years.
And that I can't answer, so again, perhaps the Director of Finance can answer that for you.
Yes, Your Worship, you are absolutely correct. Usually around the 8-year mark, there's usually an upgrade because you need new, like a server, if you have a server on site. The way that I was looking at was potentially cloud-based, so then therefore there is no servers to update, so that should help mitigate some of that cost. There could still be some licensing and those type of costs that come up, but less of the actual hardware costs, because I think it would be better to go off on a cloud-based situation.
Okay, thank you. My other question would be once it has gone through and selected, is there any training involved in regards to the new system?
Yes, there will be training.
Okay. Okay, any other questions in regards to amend 2? Okay, any questions about amend 3? Need a pen before I lose myself in this 15-page document. I would, at this time, look for recommendation number 3, if council would be in favor of putting it on the floor. Council Norbury?
That council approve the proposed administration 2025 capital and special projects that include them and include them in the 2025 to 2029 five-year financial plan.
Seconder, Councillor Julik. Any discussion? Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's a good opportunity to thank staff for bringing us capital projects that don't have any increase of taxation. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, protective services, we'll do it the same way. And we'll just start off with number 1. Any questions, Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I have a little bit more of a understanding of what this is? I see it's grant funded, which is great. I see that it's giving us funding to do engagement with First Nations. Are we bringing in an outside team to lead us in this engagement? I'm just kind of curious a little more what this entails. Not that I'm against, just curious. Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Part of the funding is intended to offset the costs of our cultural safety training that we are doing. But as for the rest of the grant funding, I will ask the Director of Protective Services if we have identified specific projects for it.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So currently, we're going to be looking at part of our obligation under the EDMA Act. We're going to be liaising with local First Nations in order to try and build relationships, understand what is important to every stakeholder on a more beneficial scale to the entire community and surrounding area. Not to say that we haven't done that in the past, but it's just a more of a formal process under EDMA with responsibilities under the regulation. So this will be a lot of internal work that's going to be done, but a lot of meaningful work in terms of collaboration, getting together, meetings, whether that's hosting luncheons or anything like that. Could be us traveling to First Nations areas and having those one-on-one conversations with them, or bringing them out to Tumbler Ridge to have a chat.
Okay.
It's good. Thank you.
30? Okay. My only question was, and I was in and talked to Ms. Scott, is why this wouldn't be under a min. Scott?
That I will refer to the Director of Finance to provide some information on.
The reason this wasn't was because it came through emergency. It wasn't a grant applied through Protective Services, and so I put it forward through as Protective Services, as that's how it was applied for, not through administration.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I just, I understand what departments apply for it. Anybody can actually have gone into the EMCR and applied for this, whether it's a min protection services. And it just, to me, I was just concerned on why we wouldn't have this under a min when staff levels. I'll use that as an example, staff levels, for organizing it and making sure that have a pulse on it. I mean, to me, it don't matter to me. It's a grant. I understand it. Appreciate when we can get grants and get that funding, but to me, I just want to make sure that we're putting this in the right spot to make sure that we follow through on them. That was my only concern. All right. Any other discussion in regards to number 1? Okay. Moving on to number 2. Any questions in regards to number 2? Okay. Any discussion about number 3? Okay. Any discussion into number 4? My only question would be, again, I was in with Ms. Scott, is why would we budget a certain amount in year 1 compared to year 2? My understanding in the previous meetings we had was to give direction to look for suitable areas to come back to council so council could either approve those areas or not. There a reason why is the idea that we'll have some areas selected to get in front of council, plus move or start the process of moving the fairgrounds? Is that why the amount for year 1?
Yes, that amount for year 1 would include, hopefully, having a site identified that council approves. If there's any site prep that needs to be done on that site, if we need to, for example, if it needs water servicing, or anything else like that. And then in order to start, like you said, moving the equipment. But again, the Director of Protective Services might be able to give you some additional information on why we're budgeting that amount for this year.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, that's exactly correct. So we plan on putting forward a report with a short list of suitable locations determined from our own anticipated needs to council for approval. And then once that happens, we want to hit the ground running. We want to get some progress on this and do exactly as the CAO alluded to. Landscaping, get everything, water services if needed, et cetera.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. In my recollection, in terms, we're looking, this would be just for phase one, correct?
Correct. It's a multi-year, this is one of the multi-years.
But we're only moving forward with phase one of two. So the reason why I ask that is that the budgeted amount listed here versus the budgeted amount in our PPC is different. Is that because this project now is going to be including potential cost of land? Is that the difference?
I'll go to staff. I just know it's a multi-year, so that might be why you see the two different amounts. Ms. Scott?
I will defer that question to the Director of Operations.
So minor, do we have a
Oh,
clear?
sorry. I'm sorry. Wrong person. That's my fault.
Bring it out, Mr. Bradley.
I was like, are you sure you got the clear question there?
My fault, yes. Sorry. The Director of Protective Services could probably answer that better.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. So yes, the amount that was given at the PPC was for the full amount, and council did have some conversations about phase one, phase two. Ultimately, the phase two that would be there, that would be for a new build. Some of the stuff that we have may be able to move over, and that's why there's the additional costs. So things like the dumpster, the levee, all of those gas props and things like that, that would be included outside of the in-year, like that's 2026, 2027, where we started looking at that. The first year would be the building. So it's not necessarily getting the land because it's going to be district property that we're going to be looking at. So we'd be looking at site prep if it needs to be fenced, what it needs for water services, power, et cetera, and then the actual building itself. So once that gets in there, then we're going to move into expanding on that into the next few years, whether that's moving into the gas props and what we need to actually do for decommissioning the other site as well, because there actually may be a time where we're not going to have full use of one training grounds or the other, where we might actually be having to use both at, just the way that it works out construction-wise.
Yeah, appreciate that. Follow up? So this is, like, I know we had a previous meeting, and this is stage one. My understanding from staff, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is no guarantee that we're going to stage two. Until staff knows, my understanding from staff is, once they see what they can reuse and move, that could determine what they may need for stage 2/stage 3 as they move forward.
So again, for the Director of Protective Services to clarify whether this multi-year project includes additional stages or if this multi-year project is just for stage one. So Director of Protective Services, if you could provide some information.
Okay, Ms. Scott, I will try to answer that as best I can. So yes, the confirmed is to move forward with phase one, which is the building and the feasibility of the looking at what can be repurposed at the current training grounds. With that, there's also the opportunity to move forward into phase two, not in the full capacity of what's in the scope of the feasibility report, because that was for a full, brand-new build. We may be able to look at opportunities to move over, say, the dumpster that we've got there, and then have that plumb with gas for usage at the training grounds. It's not going to be the full meal deal that was contained within the feasibility report, but there still needs to be some costs that are there. The costs for 2025, 2026 is phase one.
Thank you.
So the reason why I'm trying to get that nailed down is in our PPC meeting, that cost was $495,000, which is different from what's listed here. So I'm just trying to reconcile that listed number in our, one of our most recent PPC meetings to what's in front of us today. Why is that number so much different? Is it because we're gonna add in those fire elements, which I fully support, I think it's a great idea. We wanna give, you know, that heat training element. But, I'm not against it. I'm just curious what's the difference there? Thank you.
A part of the difference would be that those numbers at PPC did not necessarily include the site prep that may be needed, the site clearing that may be needed, or bringing in the water service that may be needed, is my understanding. But again, I will ask the Director of Protective Services if he can provide additional information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. That is correct. So the feasibility study, I believe, allowed for $50,000 for water service or something like that. That was contained within the RFP, or sorry, within the feasibility study, which isn't realistic if we need to run a 6-inch main line off of the road, with including the earthworks, et cetera, in order to try and do that. So there are going to be anticipated costs that are going to be exceeding what was in the RFP, or the feasibility studies, rather. However, there may also be those opportunities to reduce the costs as well, to offset. So we want to make sure that we have the capability in the budget so that we can do what we need within the scope of it. And that will also be put out for an open competition when we get to that point as well. So to actually determine what it exactly is that we need for the building.
Okay, appreciate that. Follow up, and might add some to you, just mentioning that. So, you know, we have this in front of us in regards to it. We had it at the PMP. You know, not against it. I mean, to me, it showed that we had some concerns when we have fire grounds in the light industrial park in regards to neighboring businesses and such. There's concerns there. But when we talk about scope, council has yet to see what we're actually looking for, but we got a budget in front of us. I'm not sure if that's kind of where Councilor Norbury was trying to go, is here's some numbers. This is a different number than we seen at the PMP. Why the difference? And I get it, you know, I mean, staff just mentioned it, you know, we don't know what we're gonna need, what our water needs are. We don't know what kind of landscaping is gonna need to be done, or earthworks. That's great, but we really haven't seen what the scope of the project is. We're just gonna estimate you some funds and go do this, but council hasn't seen the scope of the project. In my eyes, I'm not sure if that's where Councilor Norbury was going. I could be wrong, but like when we put a number in front of us and then we start talking about like scope and what we need, I would think, to me, you know, to me, we want to make sure, you know, I mean, I'll be honest with you, to me, that should be something that comes in front of council when you see a budget here, that we make sure the dollars are being, that's what we want. That's absolutely what I want to see in my budget is that, and that's the amount for it. But not knowing, here's a blank amount that's been put in front of us. And then when it's completed, all of a sudden it wasn't what we expected we would get for that amount. Because there's been two different amounts put in front of council. I could be wrong, that's gonna seem like the question was, and then it's just what staff had mentioned. I'm not sure if we have any comments to that.
I don't. I will ask the Director of Protective Services if he has comment on that.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, it's not our intention to deceive or anything like that. We fully want to be transparent with this and get what we need in order to try and satisfy the requirements that we're obligated to, as well as be fiscally and financially responsible. And I fully well appreciate that. I pulled up the feasibility report here while we were discussing, and it was $445,000 that was in the feasibility study previously. And that, I feel that isn't gonna accurately, my thought at the time when I created the budget for this, it's not gonna accurately define what it is that we're going to need based on the square footage of it, and just my conversations with builders of these things, of these fire training facilities. I think we're under budget on the actual buildings themselves. I can say that we're significantly under budget on installing the waterworks. They have $40,000 listed for that, and I guarantee it's gonna be more than that based on the requirement to put this not in any residential type area where there's going to be a built-up water. So we're either gonna be looking at putting a pressurized water system in and not being tied to the main line, or we're gonna be doing earthworks to move a line, which is going to be significantly cost. So my budget that's contained within the supplemental, I feel, is more accurate to what we're actually gonna be looking at for costs.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kalk. And I included the engineering budget in my my comments. And, you know, it was just, you know, when we were debating a item like this, things stick in your mind, right? And I stuck in my mind this number, and then, you know, I know what contingencies are, right? Fair enough, right? And this is what this is, a contingency. I get it. So I appreciate that we need to account for that because it's better to buffer than to have to come back, right? And ask us, well, we're at 75% of our project. Can we finish this? You know, and then we create contention. So I can appreciate, we got to build those in, you know, just like for my sense, like it would be nice to know contingencies beforehand because that's where my disconnect here is that we were quoted 1, now it's 2. Not that I'm against, I'm fully in support of the project. I agree with the vision. It's just like okay, well, has something changed? And no, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And I think things change, like, I can't speak for staff, but I think when we get these reports done by outside organizations, they don't I mean, obviously, I would assume they knew where Tumber Ridge was and stuff and came on the grounds, but I don't think they realize on what it takes sometimes to get somebody in Tumber Ridge to do, whether it's water lines that staff had mentioned or some of the earthworks or whatever that may happen. I don't think people always realize on you know, where our pull area is to have people come here. That's my belief. I think we see a bit of an increase to make sure that, like, you mentioned it, well, we're short 50,000, now we have to try and get back in front of council to move forward, and then we're holding up the project. So I think that's what it is. I mean, if I'm speaking out of the turn, that's not what staff meant to complete. I'd prefer staff to speak up, so I am not throwing words into director's comments or in commenting on behalf of the CAO. Just, if that can be possible, if that's the wrong comments being made by myself, that we definitely make sure those are cleared up before we move on.
Yeah, I believe council has a pretty good grasp on, exactly. We want to make sure that we have enough money to be able to do phase 1 and not have to come back to council to ask for additional money. But again, perhaps the Director of Protective Services has something further he would like to add.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. No, Your Worship, I think you're right on point with that. Yeah, I don't think I disagree with anything you just said.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Ms. Scott, not normally 100%, you know, you're our point person, but if you feel that it's okay and if something is spoken at a turn on up here while we're discussing the budget, whether by myself or one of my fellow elected officials, if staff could please make sure we have the right information. Just in case, you know, we try to use some of the experience we have and some of the information, like Councilor Norrie brought up what he, you know, remembers at the PMP, it, you know, gives us a few minutes to dig up that information. But just as we proceed, if somebody says something, if we could just make sure staff flag that so that we don't put that into the mind one of our other councilors or myself, and we make a decision on that and it was the wrong information. I'd hate to lead my fellow councilors on. Okay, any other questions about number 4? Okay, number 5. Councillor Julik.
I was wondering if maybe we could see the first report. I know we discussed this at the PMP. And there was resistance to the number, the $12 million that was in that report. And I afterwards wondered, would we have been so shocked with the 12 million if we'd seen the 40 million? like, so we're asking for a third report. Had we seen the first one, would we be asking for a third? So I'm wondering if maybe we could have a look at that before we vote on putting another amount out there to go out and get another report.
Yeah, I think we just put a motion on the floor. I don't believe this is just another report. It's actually reaching out to the other organizations that may have been missing the first and second report. Just trying to think, you know, this might be something maybe we don't put a motion, but I have an opportunity to speak to the CEO to find out about that first. That maybe I'll just kind of counsel out a thing. There might be, I don't know, I can't speak for staff, but it was spoke about from staff that when they received that report, there was concerns, and that's why they had budgeted dollars, they went back out. But Ms. Scott, if we were to put a motion on the floor to see that first report, I'll be honest, it still wouldn't make a change in my mind, but Ms. Scott?
Is
The first report for the firewall study.
and the question is, could council see that first report? That's the question.
Correct.
I don't see why council couldn't see that report. Again, I'll ask the Director of Protective Services if he has any concerns with that, but I can't imagine why it wouldn't be available for council.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and council, I have no objections to give that to council. The only reason why it wasn't put forward is just I knew that the value that it was going to give to council would be just complete, utter dismay. Like when I'm shocked at the price that comes in there, whether it's not my determination to put it to council, I still have to put, I have to have some confidence in what we're putting to council. I don't want to feed you a line, essentially, that just, establishes poor confidence between yourselves and staff and confidence in our ability to get the job done, and I didn't have confidence in that report, so, but I have no problem if it's the COO's, with approval, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion on number 5? Councilor Julik?
So I would like to leave this amount, well, if we were to pass this tonight and then we were to determine that we didn't need to go out for another report, I just feel like the amount here isn't just amount to go and just ask those other companies, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think there's other work to be done. There was other,
So that amount is more than just reaching out to, okay.
yeah, with the tandem look at other lower cost options for a firewall may not meet the design requirement, but may not meet the design guidelines. So it's been asked in that recommendation at the PMP.
Yeah, no, and I understand
Two
that.
different
and-
options there.
Yeah, and I just wonder, would we be asking for the third one had we seen the first one? So I'm just wondering if after we see the first one and we look, oh, because the thing is I didn't see anything in there. And I don't feel like we gave staff enough direction for the third one when we all, like, so there was agreement that the pricing was too high, yet nobody was really at the point with, well, what is it that we're looking for? So I don't know how staff goes out to ask for that another number if we haven't said where that's gonna change. Because if we get somebody else who's on the same level as the second group that came and did the report, we're gonna come back with the same number and we're gonna have spent that much money. Would we even want a third report if we see the two to begin with?
Yeah, I think it mentions it at the bottom of it. Additional administration will in tandem look at other lower cost options for a firewall that may not meet design guidelines. So right now, they went forward, I mean, I don't want to get into the last PMP, but they went forward with using, wood structure in regards to the outside of it and everything else. There was conversation, metal, so this, to me, it's clear direction, but I'll ask the CAO, to me, they're gonna see there's another option out there that's at a lower cost. I don't believe, in my thoughts, it wasn't clear enough, but Ms. Scott?
I don't believe the intention is to complete a full third report.
Correct.
But I'm sure that, again, I'll defer this question to the Director of Protective Services, who can give you a better idea of the scope of what this funding is intended to fund.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and council, so the intention with this third, I guess, action would be to further establish, is there a desire for other partner agencies to work collaboratively on some type of a building, whether that's a standalone building, what are those options out there for BC Emergency Health Services, for the RCMP, possibly get into some of their design requirements, if they are amenable to that. That's primarily the main focus of this. And then the tandem work is going to be looking at those other options for a standalone fire hall, right? Looking at the bare bones metal structure, it's 4 walls and a roof and it'll get the job done, but it's not going to comply with policies or anything like that, and it's going to be very industrial looking, et cetera. So it really does give you both ends of that spectrum. So they're kind of two paths that are gonna be working forward in this. I'd say that the former is probably gonna be the first, where we're looking at, especially doing some design concepts, should the RCMP, especially, because I know that their requirements are going to be much more significant than what the ambulance is going to be, but looking at all of those avenues and engaging with one proponent, likely just a continuation on from Faction, as they've done emergency services buildings like this.
Follow up?
Yeah, I guess I'm appealing to the rest of council that and maybe not appealing, I feel like when we talked about it at the P&P, we said that we wanted to get some other options. I never understood when I voted in that, and I may have voted against it anyways, but I never understood that we were looking at the possibility of a bare bones building. I drove by Beaver Lodge twice or 3 times now and have taken a look at their building, and that's the number that we used for comparison. I don't want that. We've done so many things to build up our community to have specific design guidelines, and so I get that it's not except I just feel like we've done all the work to get to where we're at now. Why would we take a step backwards? So for me, this number is too big. So I would be fine to leave it in the budget if we didn't have to, but I'm not in favor of going out to get another quote for bare bones. I don't know that anybody would agree to that. I feel like it's too much money we could spend someplace else.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, Councilor Julik comments about the cost. Simply put, 11-point-X million dollars is too much for me for a fire hall. Unless we can get substantial grant funding, which could never materialize. I think it's worthwhile to go out there and spend some money to see if we can make that up in an alternative source, and then that's something we can take to our residents and say, if this has to go to a referendum because we're taking out debt, we can say we did everything we possibly could to come back at options, and this is what we're going to put you in debt for this building, and we're not taking the second bid that came along. I think we have to do a due diligence on this one, and we're going to be, reaching out to our partner organizations, RCMP, BCEHS, to see if there's a way for us to collaborate, way for us to share the burden, share the load, share the cost. You never know what's going to happen until we look that up. And, maybe that $11 million building, we have buy-in from another organization that can cut the cost. And then that's one less thing that we have to go into debt for. So I see this as an investment, and I'm in support. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Julik?
And I guess if the number was smaller, I might be more inclined. I think the number's too high to basically roll the dice. I understand where Councillor Norbury is coming from. I still do not believe we've given enough direction. I feel like we could be back here after this stuff was done because we've not given clear direction of what it is that we're expecting. Like we haven't said we want, maybe we've gone to bare bones, but what does that, what does that look like? Does that mean we want to just that kind of a building when we spent all the time to have design guidelines and we expect other businesses in our community to follow those, but yet we're going to say, sorry, we're not going to follow them? And the money that was spent on those projects to make sure that we have those design guidelines and those bylaws and stuff set up, to me, at that time should have been the time that we took into consideration the costs of things further on down the road and to other businesses if we were going to implement them, not now. And so then if we make the argument that, okay, well, we don't want to borrow the money for the fire hall, but then further on down the road when we have other buildings that have to be changed, then what? Do we say, no, the design guidelines aren't good enough for that either? But that guy over there, when he wants to build a building, we're gonna, should we just throw the design guidelines out? I'm feeling like we're tripping over each other here to get to the right thing. And this is what we're here for, is to make the decisions around the money. And so for me, I think we're spending more money to find out this isn't what we want, or this is what, well, we'll do that now because we see this is too much money. I feel like we're going backwards. But anyways, I understand where Councillor Norbury is coming from. I just am not in support of this dollar amount.
Yeah, thank you. Just before I go to Councillor Noxana, so a couple of things. I know previously when the previous council has discussed the design guidelines, there was a fire hall talked about then, and it was always talked about that we may have to change it. Depends what's available. I look at some of what the DTR has had to plan for when it comes to disasters, and there's two that I know of. Yes, we've had a bit of flooding, but both have been fires. We're adding wooding to the outside of a building. I'm not saying bare bones, but maybe we need to look at a different material. We've had, that's what we've planned for, was 2 fires, 2006 and 2023. So to me, that's my concern, is we've planned in the DTR, we've had two, to me, fairly close calls, and it was fire. And to me, when you look at metal or another option, there might be a different option out there. It's not about bare bones, but, and to me, I think it's clear direction what we're looking for. Yes, there's an amount there that staff brings forward of what they think that this is gonna cost for time commitment, some dialogue with the two other agencies, plus, and it's not staff doing it. They're paying a company to go and do that. So there's a cost there. And I don't believe the cost is extraordinary compared to the first budgeted amount that we gave. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I actually think this cost is low. I'm excited about the opportunity to at least engage with the other two first responders here in our community. I think that if we are spending a certain amount of money, to engage with them, and it could save us even $1 million, we've saved money. And that's, even our Director of Protective Services has said, this is the number one thing with this money they want to do, is go and engage these other two organizations here in our community to see if there's an opportunity for partnership. Secondary, in tandem, they'll look at other options. And we would absolutely be irresponsible if we didn't look at any other option before going to the public to say, we need to take out a huge loan. Anytime anybody ever takes out a loan, I'm sure they shop around and look at what their options are. They don't go with the first one, specifically if you're spending $11 to $12 million.
Thank you. New information, Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Your Worship. I like how the CFO called you Worship, so we're going to stick with that. So, one of the comments that Councillor Julik makes is the direction given, right? Like, how do we go in and how do we chop this up? I can't do that because I know what my opinions are. I'm not a firefighter. I don't know what is the priority for our volunteer firefighters and our paid firefighter staff. What I want may not be correct. So rather than say we don't want A, we don't want B, we don't want C, we just say, try again, please. And then they can prioritize. What's the most important thing? Because maybe what I think is not important at all is the number one thing that they need to continue their tenure as a volunteer firefighter. So rather than chop it up and make my uneducated opinions, I'd rather just say, hey, let's take another look, please. Thanks.
Councillor Julik.
So my response to that, Councillor Norbury, is my concern is, in one breath we're saying, we're not the specialists, we don't know what this means, but in the next breath we're saying, but we don't want this. We want you to go get something else. And so that's where I feel like we're counterintuitive, because we haven't even, so I hear what Mayor Kakauka has said. I appreciate what he talks about, the metal and that kind of thing, that we look at the design there. What I heard at our P&P meeting was that it was bare bones already. Beyond the design of it, the outside design of it, what I heard from the CAO and the Director of Protective Services was that everything in that building was a need, not a want. And so that's where I feel like they've already come to us with that. So I don't know where to go from that. I agree. I am not a building specialist, nor am I a firefighter to know what's there. I don't know what Work BC regulations are. That's staff stuff to me. And I think that staff took that information and came back to us with something more. I understand about the interior. If we're telling them to go out and get us something that's not design guideline, okay, all right. I still think this number's too high. We've already paid it twice, so now we're gonna pay it 3 times. And that's what I don't wanna pay it 4 times, because what if this report comes back and it's not what we want? That's where I feel like we're missing a step somewhere. I hear what you're saying about the fire stuff and the building, so maybe we say, okay, go ahead and get us something, but the building has to be made out of metal. You know what I mean? I see you nodding your head, so I don't feel like I'm totally off track. That's where I'm like, okay, so we're gonna pay it 4 times, because what if the 3rd one comes back? And that's what I'm not happy with, because that's throwing good money after bad.
Yep, appreciate comments. And, I know we talk about the numbers high and stuff, and you know, staff, the previous time we budgeted for this fire hall study assessment in regards to whether we repair what we have, you know, the staff had mentioned whether we add an extra bay to the fire hall we have today, or we don't, we keep the other one and we just refab the building they're in today. There's some issues there and such. To me, it sounded like at the previous meeting, they went out to a proponent. Staff did not feel comfortable with the information they received to be able to put that in front of council and say, here you go. They looked at it and said, oh, this isn't realistic. So they had enough money within their budget that they went out to a second proponent. Council got that. My thing is not always based on the amount that was there. To me, I think there's other concepts there. One was working with our counterparts, and I'll take the blame. Previous council, we didn't tell staff to go do that. You know, to me, maybe I assumed it. Maybe I feared those agencies may have reached out to the district to partner up then. But now there's an opportunity. Our ambulance has gone full-time. They need a hall. We know that there's been talk about the, so I think this is an opportunity. Yes, there's an amount there. It is way less than the first time, way less. And they did two with that amount. So to me, hats off to staff. They didn't come back looking for funds. They were able to save on the first one and be able to get one they felt comfortable that the information was more correct or realistic. I shouldn't say correct because I'm not sure about the first one. Maybe it's all correct, but it wasn't realistic. So to me, yeah, there's numbers to do things. Again, we don't want to spend this, put a motion on the floor to remove it. If you get support, it gets removed. To me, the direction is still for staff to do that, so I guess they would do it internally. So there is that option. I mean, that's being fair. So if you want to remove it, we just need to put a motion on the floor to remove it, and if you get support, then you get support. Councillor Gillick.
I won't make a motion to remove it. I would like to thank everybody for letting me talk it out, even though I disagree with you all still.
No problem. That is okay. Okay, any other questions in regards to protective services? 1 to 5, I believe we're through there, yeah. Okay, well, I do have one question for staff, and I guess I probably missed it at the beginning of the budget meeting. But my understanding with the reports in front of us, there is no taxation. It's either at a gas tax, PRA, or surplus. I just want to confirm that, Ms. Scott? This is not a taxation project for capital.
That's correct. Out of all of the capital projects that are proposed for 2025 and 2026 that are in front of you, they are all proposed to be funded through reserves or surplus and is not intended to be funded by taxation.
And grants. Okay. My other question would be at the same point, and I apologize, council, I meant that, we should have probably talked about that at the beginning. Non-tax grants and such. My comment is it is the best practice to drain surplus. Because to me, when I add this all up, I've seen it in the reports from staff that we could look at draining quite a bit of surplus. And I just want to make sure that this is the best thing for the corporation if we decide to move forward with all these items and such, that we are not putting the DTR at risk.
Sorry, I may have misspoke earlier.
No problem.
I think there is one project that's intended to be funded by taxation, but I will, in regards to your question about using up surpluses, that's probably a question that's best answered by the Director of Finance.
Okay. And I apologize, just before I go to staff, I do apologize. It has nothing to do with the protection service budget. It should have been done at the beginning. I just want to apologize to staff about that. Maybe we should have went through and voted first and then brought this up. But I think that's a conversation we should have had at the beginning on, and I apologize if there was some taxation and my eyes might be blind or, I mean, at first I only had the small print. But I just want confirmation on that. And then the last question I asked the CEO, and just regards what that does as a corporation.
Okay, Your Worship, Council, when we go and look at, for taxation, one of the projects for 2020, that would start in 2026 would result in future taxation. So I want to be totally transparent on that. So if everything was approved, it would result in taxation in the future. It wouldn't be for your 2025 year, it wouldn't be for your 2026 year, but it would result in taxation. So that is where that project comes in. Now, with regards to the reserves, yes, there's certain reserves that will be totally, absolutely drained if we proceed and we utilize all those reserve funds. That being said, there's some funds that could now start going back in. If we've got all to that point, we continue to put the money back into those reserves and not do necessarily, say, paving projects. That reserve would then build up again. So it's a case of we can drain it. I've got confidence in us draining, and then now we need to go back. You haven't done a bunch of paving. It's built up over the last several years. You end up draining this, and then in future, we would take some out of it, and then it would be repaid, some out and repaid. So with that, as well as the operating surplus, as you were informed last night, there is a significant amount that could roll over into capital, or it could be utilized on this. I mean, always can use more money in capital, but it is a mechanism through that policy that we have adopted for the operating reserves that money can go into capital. Not all of it will be utilized through this budget process. So I'm confident with the numbers that we're giving you. It's not going to create a tax spike in the future years for you to have to tax for building up reserves.
I just have a follow-up, Ms. Scott. And we'll use paving as the topic because it was one that was mentioned by staff. So we have an asphalt replacement, I don't know if it's a policy, I could be wrong, but in regards to, and it wasn't staff that held it off, it was some previous asphalt work that was done that slowed the process and moving forward with that asphalt replacement plan. We are nowhere near on what stage we need to be with that plan. So when I hear that, oh, it's okay to drain it now, because then we won't be doing any more and we can start to fill it back up. But that is not correct when it comes to the asphalt replacement plan. It's a multi-year plan that doesn't say we do the South Park lot, and I know we budgeted for the bottom of the community center last year, but of course one had to get held over until this year. But then we have some streets further on in the budget, and I'm only using asphalt because it was what staff used as an example. But within that plan, there's no stop after we do Valley View or Spruce or Wolverine. It is to continue on certain other streets within this community. So I'm just want to get clarification when we hear about it's okay, or we feel confident to drain, because then we'll slow down or whatever for now, and then we'll be able to refill up, and then we'll start again. But some of these plans aren't made to stop. Some are made to go every year. So I want clarity on that, because that's, and I apologize again to Protection Services that this had nothing to do with what was in front of us. I was thinking about it, and I didn't want to lose track that we never had that conversation at the beginning.
And I'm not super familiar with all of the details that are in the asphalt replacement policy.
It's a plan. I don't think it's a policy. I believe it's just an asphalt replacement plan.
And that might be something that the Director of Operations could actually provide council with some additional detail on.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, the asphalt replacement plan has definitely fallen by the wayside over the years due to our discrepancies with paving that has currently gone on. We are trying to get it back on track based on road conditions that we currently have within the district. But we have to start somewhere. I'm not sure whereabouts in the plan. I was looking for it on my desktop, but I'd have to do some further digging for it. But yeah, exactly what Mr. Krakalko was saying. We don't intend to stop. This is the bulk of the projects that are presented tonight are kind of the bulk of the worst. So moving forward, then we can determine what the next steps are.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, I'm not worried, like, I know there's stuff in our agenda, and I only use the asphalt because that was used as an example. I'm not trying to throw anybody, like, I just want clarity when I heard those comments, if I may. So my understanding we feel confident that we have, there's a couple projects. If we decide to move forward on certain projects that have multi-years, yes, there could be taxation in the upcoming years, not in 2020, everything within this booklet tonight, 2025, no taxation. Grants, PRA, gas tax, or grants. If we decide to go with the multi-years, could be taxation implications later on. My concern is draining our surpluses. Is that a good idea or suggestion for the DTR side as a corporation? And the comments back was asphalt was used. So we drain it this year to do some work, which I absolutely, we're behind, and it has nothing to do with staff, has nothing to do with the elected officials. We had some concerns on previous asphalt that, you know, I mean, it's open knowledge that there's warranty work that had to be done. So that was held up to get to that point. My concern is if we hold up asphalt, and I'm using asphalt as just as the example that was used, but the asphalt planning, it never stated in there, we're gonna do, I mean, it was a multi-year, so here, here, here. And I don't ever remember in any page I looked in that says, stop here, build funds back up, restart. So I just wanna be clear, get clarification, and that's not what we're doing.
So again, I will ask the Director of Finance if she can provide some additional information to council on what that means for the ongoing asphalt replacement plan.
Mayor, council, this is where I'm not fully aware of the plan, so I don't know what the implications are. I know that there's about $1 million put aside each year, so it would be potentially restricted to whatever that amount was that you would be putting towards into that reserve that would be going towards paving. And anything else that would be operating surplus or exceeding that 2 to 4 month is about the only stuff that would be available for paving, depending on what the projects are going on in Judy. I would probably recommend, once looking at that whole paving plan and looking into the future, to see what the sustainability is, and especially with the prices nowadays.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'll come to Councilor O'Brien in a second. Ms. Scott, I just want to be, I want clarity, I guess, for myself, but I mean, obviously, as we all sit up here as elected officials, so I want to make sure council's aware as we go through this. And so I mean, I used asphalt as an example, because it was one that was used, but I can use other ones. Let's use the equipment fund. So let's drain it this year and buy all this equipment, or whether it's pickup trucks or whatever it may be. And then next year, we won't buy any equipment. We're going to build that back up until, I don't know, whatever year, and then we're going to drain it again. And I don't think that's is that what we're looking at with this in front of us? I just want clarity as I move forward for the budget. I know I asked Ms. Scott this earlier, so she's aware.
And again, I'll ask the Director of Finance to provide to provide some clarity into what you're asking.
Mayor and council, no, the machinery and equipment's in good position. That one's a fund that's got significant funds in. I've made sure that there is. The only fund that is the reserve fund, and I think I highlighted in my report, is the asphalt reserve that would be going down to utilizing all of the funds. Operating surplus and all of those have enough funds to cover everything that you have on there, with funds still being available.
Okay, and thank you for that. I just wanted, again, I just wanted to get clarity. I did ask those questions late this afternoon, so I didn't expect an answer until tonight, but I just want to make sure we're all aware. We all, you know, I'll be honest, I think you look at it, you go through your reports, you look at the budget, there's no taxation in 2025 for the items that are here. Geez, that's pretty good. But we also got to look forward to what previous councils have done in the past with the savings they've made. And I'm not saying that this isn't the year to purchase things that are needed by the DTR, but I meant to ask those questions earlier. So again, I'm going to apologize to the Director of Protective Services that I rambled on here just before we made a motion that it had nothing to do with his budget that was in front of us. Nothing, like zero. I just didn't want to forget it. And I thank Councilor O'Brien for giving me a piece of paper. Councilor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. And you know, sometimes it's got to get them. Ask the hard questions. No, but seriously. I mean, but isn't like, this isn't a point to argue, but isn't that like capital management, asset management? Like, we're gonna have those ebbs and flows of those reserve funds, and like we put away them every year for the replacement. So there will be time where, you know, they're gonna be flush, but we do got to pull out of them because you know that was the intended purpose the whole time. And that sort of, isn't that kind of what we're doing here? Like, that seems like this is how it should work. Things are gonna go up, and then we plan to pay for them over the next 20 years, and then we're going to lose a bunch of that, and that's fine because that's the whole intended purpose. But I think that's kind of how I appreciate what you're saying. But rattling in my brain with all of the work of asset management we did last term, and the importance that was pushed on us about asset management, it seems like that's how this should kind of work. When you're looking at reserve funds, I mean, I can absolutely understand the operating surplus funds. That's just coming out of operating surplus, right? It's not earmarked, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like these reserves. Sounds like that's what their intended purpose is for.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I think staff explained it really well. It was just when I heard about depleting and then we'll stop and build up, And I get it, that not everybody has seen the plans and stuff like that, and well, I'll take the blame for that. Maybe we didn't get in front of council either. It's just previous, and, you know, there's been a holdup. But it was just when I heard that, I just wanted to make sure that we were aware of it, and I think it was just a good discussion. So, but I agree, that's why we, previous council have put funds away, but also councils that you sat on and myself, even this council last year put funds away. That's the reasoning we do it. Councillor Jilek.
Are you ready for recommendation
am.
4? That council approve the proposed Protective Services 2025 capital and, Protective 2025 capital and special projects list, including multi-year projects, and include them in the 2025-2029 5-year financial plan.
Seconder. Councillor Hoffman, discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. No, you weren't. I was looking for, I thought maybe you had something to add. All right, on to capital for operations. Any questions in regards to operations number 1, fleet? Councillor Noberry.
Thank you, your worship. How many carts are we looking to replace? My guess would be 6.
Ms. Scott.
Yes, 6.
Thank you. 6.
Perfect. Good guess. What are we doing with the old ones? Are we trading them in?
I'm going to stop. My understanding is a lot of times there's no trade-in value, but I think they do normally try, and if they can't get anything for them as a trade-in, they go to auction. But Ms. Scott?
Yeah, so with the old carts, and we still haven't disposed of the carts that were replaced last year yet either. The way that the surplus asset disposal is written in the policy is that any surplus assets that are estimated to have any monetary value shall be disposed of by the chief financial officer in a manner which will receive the best possible return to the district. Some of those options may include a donation to a registered charitable organization or nonprofit society, reuse at another location or department within the district, trade in or return to supplier for credit, sale by public or selective bids, sale at a public auction, sale or other disposal as scrap, or classified as waste and written off. And it also further talks about if the value of the asset is $500 or less, that the chief financial officer may dispose just simply through a donation to a registered charitable organization. If the trade-in value is more than $10,000, then council approval has to be given for that. The estimated value of the golf carts, depending on the actual individual condition of them, is maybe $1,200, maybe $1,500. And so I know there was some discussion about how best to dispose of those and whether it would just be a public auction for public locally or whether it would go to BC bids. So we haven't fully decided the best way to dispose of those assets yet, but those are some of the options that are available to us.
Follow up?
Thanks for that explanation. I guess it really depends on the condition of the carts before we know what we can do. So most of those reasons I have no problems with. Fair enough, leave it up to staff discretion. Thank you.
Councillor Julick and then Councillor Hoffman.
I'm curious as to what happens if we choose not to replace them. What will happen with those funds that have been allocated in this report?
It's from the capital reserve funds, so we'll just stay there. But Ms. Scott?
That's correct.
Not PRA or gas tax, so we'll just stay in capital reserve funds.
Okay. We couldn't use, if they were coming out of, are they in the, basically what I'm getting at is like, can this money be used for something else? And I know I had the same discussion last year. And I don't think I ever really got clear. I don't remember if I did. If this is coming out of an equipment reserve, we're replacing them because on paper it says we should replace them. Is that correct?
I would think there's probably maintenance issues, but Ms. Scott, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they are aging. The lifespan of golf carts is 7 to 10 years. These are this year they would be in year 8, I believe. And because of their age, there is some additional maintenance that they are causing. which is one of the reasons why they were slated for replacement. But the Director of Operations may be able to provide some additional information that may be beneficial for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott. The replacement for these carts I brought forward in 2024. The discussion at that point in time was we were going to look at replacing 12 carts. Determined that doing 6 last year and 6 this year. That was based off of a mechanical assessment that we did on the carts. The carts are aging. They are 2008s. We are 2024 now. And again, on a rental basis, they say the cart's average life expectancy is 7 years.
Good?
I have one more question.
Okay?
Why, if they're not having substantial repairs for the ones that are replaced, do we have to adhere to that policy? Like, I'm thinking, okay, so we replace them, but we didn't actually, like, get rid of them for whatever, like, for the reasons that you explained. I'm just saying, is that a policy that we can override? Like, I mean, if they're still workable, like if they're still drivable and they're still safe and all of that stuff, because I know they're gas, which that extends the life and the cost to them. Is there a possibility that we can still keep them and just keep using them? Or is this a policy that makes it so that we have to disperse of them?
Yeah, so before I go to Ms. Scott, last year when we talked about replacement, the direction was to make sure that those ones were to leave the system. So my understanding is, so, and I'll go to Ms. Scott, but I just heard from staff again about these 6 carts, is there's maintenance issues, it's costing more. To me, you leave them in the system, why are we replacing ones if we can spend more money to fix them and keep fixing and spend more money? Then why did we replace them? Right, we replaced them because the cost of the maintenance was so high. So if you keep them in the system, we didn't save any taxation, any tax dollars, because we had to pay to fix them. Go ahead.
But what I'm hearing is that they're scheduled and there is some cost to it, but I'm not hearing that the cost is outweighing the buying a new one. And maybe I'm just not hearing that.
Okay, my apologies, but that's kind of what I got. But Ms. Scott, that's what I got.
Yeah, I would agree with what the mayor had said, that if we wanted to keep those golf carts that we intend to replace, that we do need to be prepared for the additional costs for the repair and maintenance of those carts if we did want to keep them. And that is the reason why we're saying we want to replace them, because they are at an age and at a state where they are requiring a lot more maintenance and repairs than the other carts.
Makes sense. I got Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologize for my voice tonight, and if I'm unclear, just let me know. I don't have any issue with the golf cart replacement cycle, but between the golf cart replacement cycle and adding golf carts, my issue is in the last 2 years in budget, we haven't really seen what the golf course as a whole is doing. So I understand that there's a rental rate on golf carts, and that seems to be worthwhile, but without really knowing how the golf course is doing in general, what it's costing us, what revenues it's bringing in, what the future, what the expectations thereof, I have a hard time agreeing to this just because I just don't feel I have the overall information on it right now. It really applies more to 11, but for 1 as well. And I know what the plan was from last year, and I'm totally fine with going forward with that. But I just, for myself, and I don't want to speak for the rest of council, is every time I see something from the golf course, it's a snippet. It's golf carts, it's rental there, it's this, it's that. I just would like to see the big picture for the golf course to have a real idea. We also have a building that we were talking about, what do we do with and do we want to expand on? So I realize we're in budget mode. I'm not suggesting in the next 2 weeks that I'm getting an answer on that, but it makes, just for myself, I just want to put it out there, it makes it much harder to say yes to these line items when I don't know how they fit into the big golf picture. So I'm not planning on making a motion, at least not on number 1 here, but just putting it out there that it's hard to say yes to these items without having a larger feel of what's going on with the golf course. Thank you.
Councillor Hoffman, would it, it's usually pretty quick for them to pull a number, would it help with finding out what the amount of money made off golf cart rentals was last year? Would it help you?
So bluntly, we looked at that last year. I remember we had a rental rate and cost, and the golf carts itself was a positive number, which made it easier to say yes to line one. But if the cost of maintaining the course and the green fees are a bigger gap, then it's harder to say. So I do appreciate that, and that would be a much easier number to pull. And it's also why I'm not in a combative mood over the actual line items, but just putting it out there for the rest of council to think about as well, that we don't have a golf course number or golf area, whatever we want to call the whole shebang. So that's where I'm at, and we have another line item on 11 that'll come up, and I'm sure we'll talk about that too. But that's where I am on golf, on anything golf related right now.
Councillor Oksana, can you tell us the page number of the information for Councillor Hoffman, please?
The information for what the golf cart rentals is in the report for number 11. I don't have the page number. There's no page number. But I believe Councillor Hoffman's talking about the golf course as a whole, not just the carts.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, but he asked for the cart rental, and I think, I think there's an opportunity to make sure I believe that'll come in on the core budget with where we're at. And I know it doesn't help you here, but I know there was a page, and I got the two bundles trying to find it, but it is in their book under the last option has what the cart rentals were.
No, and I understood that. But that's just it. We had that last year and as well, and I appreciate the golf cart rentals itself as a line item is easy to justify, but I'm missing the bigger picture on the golf course in general.
And that'll come, I believe, Ms. Scott, with the core budget. It'll have all that information.
Yes, on February 4th, when we review the operating budgets in the year over year.
Sorry, operating budget. I call it core. My apologies. But yeah, so we'll have it. I guess we're ahead of that, right? We're doing capital and then obviously operational. But we should have all that information.
Okay.
I would think green fees, cart rental, but not just the golf course, community center, anything that town hall, if there's stuff that business licenses and stuff, we should have all that information in that report.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Norberry?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I'm in support of the replacement. Because, we're jumping ahead to 11 a little bit, but we can see what the rentals were, and then we can also see the increase, of what that was, almost 20%. So that's showing that we are utilizing these carts more. They're getting more usage than was previously intended. And, got to make sure we meet the demand for our golf course. People love it. Thanks.
Thanks. And my apologies, probably not just to staff and council, but any viewers via Zoom. I think we should start reading out what we're discussing. Not everybody has the agenda in front of them on Zoom. And I've been just stating number one, number two, number three. So obviously we're under the operations budgets, the previous budgets. We're not going to go back to, but this is under fleet for golf cart replacement of the 2008 golf cart fleet over the 2 years, 2024 and 2025. Any more discussion in regards to the golf cart replacement? Okay. Under operations and fleet is the replacement of the garbage truck. The current garbage truck has 127,000 kilometers and over 10,000 hours of runtime. This unit runs 5 days a week in all weather conditions. This unit is one of the most critical pieces of equipment in the district's fleet. Any questions? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering if we were going to keep the old truck as a redundancy option, or if we're trying to get rid of that.
Yeah, I'll go to Ms. Scott. I know previously when we purchased this unit, we did keep the previous council made a decision to keep the other unit for backup. But Ms. Scott, is that the plan is to offload the oldest one and keep the newer one with a brand new one?
That's the intention, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Mr. Hoffman? It's in, yeah, I'm going to say it's in. Good? Okay, any other questions?
What? Obviously, I didn't read it well.
Okay, number 3, Public Works, scan tool for mechanical equipment. Purchase of a scan tool for diagnosis abilities within the district instead of continuously sourcing outside contractors. Any questions? Councillor Julik.
I'm just curious, this will work for all of the pieces of equipment that we own?
Ms. Scott?
have the answer to that. And instead of sitting here waiting for me to find the specific spot, I'm sure the Director of Operations is going to answer that a lot quicker than I can.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council. Yes, the scan tool will work for a majority of our equipment. There will still be a few niche things that we will have to source out, but it will allow us to be more self-sufficient within the district.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Dussault.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering, how often do we send stuff out for the scan?
Ms. Scott?
In 2024, we spent about between $7,000 and estimated between $7,000 and $8,000 on outside contractors doing these diagnostics.
Follow-up? Follow-up?
Don't play with the mic. So that was in 2020? I'm
Four.
sorry, 2024? And that was for the whole year?
I believe so, but I got those numbers from the Director of Operations, so maybe he has an additional information he would like to add.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, yes, it was an estimated $8,000 for the entirety of the year. Yeah, we had to reach out far to get some programming done, so.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay, any other questions in regards to, geez, what number are we on? Sorry. Number 3, the scan tool for mechanical equipment. Okay, number 4, operation solid waste, commercial garbage / recycle bins, replacement of 6 new recycle bins to meet the demand of the district, and replacing bins that are ending life. Any questions? Councillor Julik.
This is more, it's curious, I'm not wanting to second guess, but I guess that's what I'm doing. So, does it make sense for us to continue? I read in the benefits and the outcome that we are one of the last few communities that use this style of bin. And so I'm wondering, like, I'm guessing, but it's not my wheelhouse, that if we were to change the style of bin, that would mean we'd have to change the style of truck and all the things. And is this style of bin more expensive? That's what I'm looking at. Like, I'm okay with these here. I'm just wondering if we should be looking towards the future, if we're one of the few places. Is this something that's going to become obsolete, which then causes us to have obsolescence with the other equipment and stuff?
Yeah, I'll go to staff, but I mean, if we were to change our option today, I think that's what we should be asking. How many bins do we have for recycle / garbage? What are those amount of bins? And then look at that. Not only would we change, I mean, obviously we haven't approved it yet, but there was no questions about the replacement of the garbage truck. But you would have to replace multiple bins, which would, there's these bins that we have today, anything that, even if they purchased in the last few years, aren't worth anything. But I had those same questions, but I've previously asked them. Ms. Scott?
In the conversations with the suppliers, they do not anticipate there being a shortage or that they would stop manufacturing the bins. But again, this is something that I'm sure the Director of Operations can provide you with additional information on.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council. Yes, so currently the bins that we have 48 of these commercial bins out in the district. They are quite expensive now to replace. Costs have gone up. The cost for these bins is due to the fact that each bin has its own hydraulic system. Okay, so, and speaking with the supplier, yes, there are fewer communities using these. They're more prevalent in the north and in Indigenous communities. So that was the information that I recently got. The bins have an estimated 25-plus year life expectancy. The oldest bins that we have are 20 years old, and we're continuously maintaining them, so.
Follow up, you're good.
Yeah, would we have to replace the trucks, like, so the equipment that we use currently to empty the bins, that would have to be changed if we change the style of bin?
Yeah, because this one here has hydraulic lines that hook to the can. So
Oh,
it'd be-
right,
They would
yes.
look at something totally different. But Ms. Scott, I don't want to speak for staff.
Again, I believe that's correct. If we were to look at a different style of bin, it would mean a different style of truck. And I don't know then how that would affect the other residential bins. And again, this is probably something that the Director of Operations can provide you additional information on.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, we're kind of limited as to the type of truck that we can get or we can operate with. It's currently the type of truck that we have, which is why the ask this year was for a mirror of that system. In order to change the bins and go to one that just has an arm on it, it doesn't suit all of our needs within the district. So we're kind of limited that way.
Good. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. What was the cost of the previous bins that we've purchased? We said these gone up. I don't, yeah, what was the cost of the old bins?
Ms. Scott?
While I don't know the exact cost to the District of Tumbler Ridge, similar bins that I have previously replaced used to be at a cost of about $9,000 a bin. But this is something, in order to make sure that the information you're getting is more relevant to the actual cost of the District of Tumbler Ridge, I, again, will ask the Director of Operations to provide additional information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, Ms. Scott was correct. They used to be roughly $9,000. Now it's between $8,000 and $9,000 for a refurbished bin.
Follow up.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. That's quite a bit difference. I think we're kind of already past the point of turning back, because we're gonna have to, buy 45 new bins. But looking at this cost, it sort of makes you stop and think about that. My other comments is that we charge businesses for these bins. We charge them a monthly fee. Was that based on a cost recovery basis, and will that go up with these new bins? Like, that would be my concern. We're spending more on these bins. Now we need to download that cost onto our businesses.
Yeah, Ms. Scott, I have a different question, but similar to yours, but Ms. Scott?
I'm just trying to decide if the Director of Finance or the Director of the Operations is the best one to answer that question.
One each?
Maybe the Director of Finance first.
Through to Mayor and Council, the fees that we charge are very low and currently right now, what is collected for solid waste does not cover the expenditures for solid waste. So unless the fees and charges bylaw would go up and increase those rates, it would come to council first. So it's not a direct, if this goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean the fees goes up. That's a whole different conversation.
We're good? Okay, I actually have a different question than Ms. Scott, similar to Councilor Norbury's. Do we take the rental of these bins and actually put them in a replacement budget for the bins? And once that reaches that goal, then it goes into general revenue?
That would be great if we were doing that. But no, I believe that, as the Director of Finance had stated earlier, the amount of revenue that we are currently collecting is not enough to even pay for the service, let alone have additional money left over to put into reserve. But again, I'll ask the Director of Finance if she has anything else she would like to add.
Mayor, Council, that would be a lovely world where we had the money going in every year and it was going to a reserve. I have not seen that for several years happening. If that was to happen, there would be, council would have to reconsider rates because other rates would have to go up, or they would have to consider a taxation increase.
So I guess my question is, if that's possible, to me, it's an option to look at. The other thing is we talk about it. So I know residentially, I pay residential tax, and actually includes my garbage and recycle pickup. Well, all these companies, actually, all these businesses pay tax, and it's right on there that pays for our waste and recycle as well. So when we say we're not making enough, I find it a little weird because really and truly, the bill that I get, to me, is just for the bin, not for the pickup, because I pay for that on my taxation, just like any other business owner within the community or resident. That's paid on our taxation. For any person that owns a building within a municipality as a business, your taxation pays for your water, your sewer, and your garbage pickup, recycle pickup, if you have recycle. Besides the bins, which we actually, businesses are billed, I just heard that, by the municipality for bin rental, but we're not charging enough. But to me, we don't even, I would like to look at what it takes to, if we're looking at 6 bins, and I'm not sure how often we buy bins, 6 bins for year 1 and then year 2 for another 6. To make sure that we, you know, whether it's a line item, how that works, I don't know, but I was gonna ask the same question for the golf cart rentals. To me, if we're looking at replacing, if this is every 20 years and we need to have, or every 5 years, we look at buying 6, and we need to have this much money in the account, that we take that money from the rentals from the businesses, until that reserve hits this number, it doesn't go into general revenue. It goes into that so that it's a little easier when staff comes before council and says, it's in my budget, I need to pull this amount out of the recycler, garbage can, bin replacement, to buy 6 bins. There's no taxation, it's actually been funded for that, you know?
So to provide you with the information that I think you're looking for is of the amount that we're collecting from the businesses for the bins, can it be earmarked specifically for replacement reserve? And so that is something that I will get the Director of Finance to provide you information on whether that is something we can do with that fee that we're collecting.
Thank you.
We can establish a reserve like we have done with the bylaw, that will go in. The only thing that I will mention is losing that amount of revenue, it needs to be made up somewhere else. Taxation is going to have to cover the difference of that. And because currently that is being utilized to help fund solid waste.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Jilek.
Can a person make a motion in this meeting? Because what I'm hearing from you, and I would like to know as well, like when was the last time we raised our sewer, or not our sewer, sorry, our rates? And I know that we have another, like our garbage rates, I know we have another report coming from the, I want to say the dump, but it's not the dump.
Transfer
it's the
station?
Transfer station. I know we have another report coming, and I wonder if in that we could ask staff, and if I need to make a motion, to figure some of those numbers out, because I think I have some bigger questions now, because I agree with you. I wonder if we shouldn't be having a reserve fund for these as we see the expense going up, and that it doesn't look like it's ever going to be feasible to change our system. So to figure that out, and I'm glad that you talked about that you're paying rent on your bin, but your taxes are paying for the actual dumping of the stuff and of the refuse. And so, yeah, I'd like to have some more information, obviously not during budget season, but if we could add that, and do I need a motion to have that happen?
No, I don't think we need a motion. I'm pretty sure staff just captured that. And if they didn't, we can do a notice of motion, but it's just an opportunity to have this discussion. And, you know, I have mentioned it to Ms. Scott, so it's not, you know, I looked at that. I mean, we actually had previous business owners very upset on how much we actually charged for bins. And back then, obviously, the bin cost was way lower. That was mentioned by staff already. Well, some of these businesses, I keep using us because I got to take my business out of it. But the businesses were complaining because really and truly, when they added up their rent, they were paying for the bins over and over and over. Like, why didn't our costs go down? But you don't understand that, you know. So I think it's worth having a discussion. I think staff captured it. If not, we do notice motion, and I'll bring it forward. But I think it's worth having. Okay, any other discussion in regards to that? Because I had the same question about the golf cart rentals, or the golf cart replacement, same concept. Okay, where are we at? Perfect. Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess before we get going on the next ones, because I think those are gonna be lengthy. I think. Okay, 5-minute recess. Moving on to number 5, roads, paving of Skunka Ave Place, paving of Skunka Ave and Skunka Place due to the condition of the roadway. Questions from council? Council Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. This is kind of in general of all of the asphalt replacements that are proposed in front of us. If we get through these in the next however much, where will this put us on our previous plan? Will this get us up to date? Are we going to be 3 years behind? Just kind of curious.
Ms. Scott?
I can't answer that, so I will defer that to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm actually not sure where this will put us on the plan as far as the schedule. We haven't done any paving in the community since 2018, so we are substantially behind.
Yeah. Follow-up good? Yeah. This might, Councilor Chilik.
I just, I'm hoping that we get a better deal because we're doing 5 projects at the same time. Is that true?
I'll go to staff, but normally, it depends on, well, once it goes out to an RFP and they go through that process, if it is awarded to all of one proponent, then it would have less fees for them for transportation of equipment back and forth. But Ms. Scott, that would be my thoughts.
Yeah, and just before I ask the Director of Operations to provide you additional information there, I just want to say too, I mean, all of the paving projects that you see in front of you, these are ones that staff has identified as, you know, these are the ones that are in the worst condition. But they are listed separately, so you can make those decisions of, we want to do this and we don't want to do this, and that, you know, they are listed separately instead of one big project, so you do have that ability to do that. But to answer your question, I will ask the Director of Operations to provide additional information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, as Ms. Scott was saying, the projects that are in front of you are separate so that we can determine what our priority is at this point in time. I know that they're all listed in the 2025 era, but, you know, when we start looking at the potential of having to put this out to RFP, you know, having to find the contractor to do so, we are already into season. And on the list of priority for these paving companies, I'm not sure where we will fall. So those are the aspects that I think we need to be aware of moving forward. But I can't move forward with any of these projects and make any progress if I don't have budget approval.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Julik.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to confirm, is the order that we see these projects the order of priority?
Ms. Scott.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Don't know if it's appropriate to bring the other one, but I was wondering between our number 5 and number 6, what staff's priority would be.
Yeah. Ms. Scott, I believe they're like, I don't want to answer for staff. They're putting them all in front of us. If there's, I guess my thoughts are that to me, they're all a priority of staff's in regards to road condition that they see out within the streets. So they're putting them all forward as probably all of a concern that they would like to see done. If there's any that we don't want to do this year, it would be up to us to remove one. But to me, it doesn't sound like it from staff, but I'll let staff answer. But it doesn't sound like there's a priority over each other, whether that's line 5, line 6, 9, or 10. Ms. Scott?
And so that's my understanding as well, that we've identified them all as being roads that are priority and need to be done. But again, I'll ask the Director of Operations if he would like to add anything to that.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, that is correct. They are all classified as a priority, but it's my request that, you know, you give us the priority.
Makes sense. Councillor Julik.
If, what I've understood from previous years, even if we approve this budget, if we don't approve it immediately, this will not go out for tender, or the odds of getting somebody to be able to do the streets this year would be slim. If we were to say tonight, yeah, we're gonna go ahead with this, none of the other budget discussions, if I'm understanding the process, remembering it correctly, would it be possible to do the paving this year in the community?
I would think if nothing gets removed, and even if something does get removed within the paving projects that are listed here, staff will do their best to get the RFPs out. And they have to wait for that to come back, select a proponent, and then go from there. My understanding from last year, we do have a carryover. It was not a staff holdup, it was an outside agency that held up the bottom of the community center in regards to drawing up the RFP on behalf of the DTR. So that has nothing to do with staff, so the RFP was drafted late, that's why proposed went out late, that's why the carryover. But Ms. Scott?
I will ask the Director of Operations to give you kind of like how that process would work once this was approved, if it was approved by council, to kind of give you a step-by-step of what that process might look like.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Where we are currently with these road projects is we've had costing done for these projects. Next steps would be design, then we'd have to build out RFP, go out to market, and depending on when the budget is finalized, that is when we can start the process. So there could be a delay. And yes, as the mayor had said, we did have a delay last year with the community center parking lot, which is why I would like to prepare council at this point that there could be a delay in approving all of these projects. But if we don't approve a budget for them, then we can't move forward with them, and there will be even further delays.
Follow up?
Yeah, I feel like I wasn't clear in my ask. What I'm wondering, because I understand the sooner we can get the RFP out, the better chances are of having the paving done. What I understand the process right now, we wouldn't actually approve the whole budget until May. My question is, could we approve this portion of it before May so that the RFP could go out?
Yeah, I have a plan in place, but it's called pre-approved.
Yes.
So I was waiting to see if anybody from council has any concerns or want to remove any before I read my motion.
All right.
But
Thank
anybody can make the motion, but that's why I have it listed, the same thing, but I'm curious, right now we're doing 5 and 6, and then there's one in between, and then we'll do the other ones. But to me, if council's fine with what has been listed by staff, I did plan on putting a pre-approved budget amendment out. Councillor Hoffman, sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Julik. That is where my mind was going with this as well, especially after what staff gave. I may have taken your question too literally, Mayor, but I would like to move that we remove number 6 from the current list. The reason...
Hang on a second. Motion to remove number 6, which is, actually, let's just deal with 5.
Okay.
So if any questions with 5, because I've read it out and I don't want to read them all out. Okay, any questions with any other discussion in regards to number 5? Okay, moving on to number 6, roads, paving Wolverine Ave and Wolverine Place. Paving Wolverine Ave and Wolverine Place due to the condition of the roadway. Discussion, Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. That's why I asked the question earlier of, is there a priority between these? Also listening earlier that we're talking about completely draining a budget here. I'm not sure I'm thrilled with that. It may be the case that it's the best course of action, and I'm not really against it, but just looking at the numbers, it's a lot of work in 1 year that we're talking about getting done. And just looking at the options, I think that's a reasonable one to consider removing.
You want to put a motion on the floor?
Oh, I thought I did. That's right, I didn't. I move that operations number 6 be removed from the budget for 2025.
Okay, Wolverine Ave and Wolverine Place. Seconder? Councillor Julik, discussion? Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. I am not in favor of the motion on the floor. I think this is just kicking the can down the road for us to deal with next year. Whether the money is in reserve or not, we'll be taxing in the future for road replacement. So whether we use the reserve now and tax next year for road replacement, or tax this year and use reserve next year, it's all adding out in the same, that this road has been identified as a priority for our community. So I'd like to see them all stay in.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Your Worship. Until I can have, a paver say that you can't get all these done, and I would suggest you pick project 146 versus just choosing one. I can't support removing any until we hear from a professional who does this sort of stuff. And no offense, Councilor Hoffman, I have no doubt you're an intelligent individual, but I just don't know if we can or cannot do this until we try. Well, and until somebody says that we can't, right? And I'm under the assumption that we heard Director of Operations say they're going to try and get them all done. They get pretty efficient out there. I see highways now being done. It's just one long line, where they used to have to tear things up and put it down separately. Yeah. Until somebody says definitively, yes, we can't do this, and then we look at a multi-year plan, I'm in favor. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Chilic.
I appreciate where you're going with it. I think that staff has taken a look. They've put it in our reports that they were well aware that this would drain our paving reserve. I think it's important that we get caught up on the paving, and I only see the cost of it going up, so I'll be voting against the motion on the floor.
Okay, Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you. And I was not married to this at all. I'm just looking at the total budget number that we're talking about here. And to answer Councillor Norbury, yes, you get enough companies doing it, you could pave the whole town in the summer if you wanted to. That's not the question I have. It's, even if we needed to, do we want to do that all in one shot? And that's the balance. And council's obviously not interested in deferring any of this, given the history going on. And I do understand why. And I think there's a good chance that this will be a non-issue, but I wanted to put it out there that we actually discussed, like, do we want to do this much work in one shot? And apparently we do, so I'm ready to vote.
Perfect. Any other discussion? I'm just going to make a couple comments. My comments would be that, I believe, like, we are behind, and staff's mentioned it, and I think we got to try all we can to get up to where we need to be in regards to asphalt. And I say that in regards to, as it continues to fall apart, we're going to see the continuous patching, which costs labor, material, and then we're going to end up like the sidewalks downtown. And to me, I've heard enough from the residents of Tumber Ridge to make sure I made a promise at the Let's Talk that the downtown sidewalks will be done this year, and it's in the budget. So to me, when I see staff bring this forward, I'll be honest, if it doesn't all get done, then it's a carry forward. But to me, I think if we don't remove anything and we support a pre-approved budget, it gives more time for them to get it out to an RFP. And we might be surprised. To me, hopefully it's one company, because it'll cost us hopefully less with them mobilizing equipment. But again, that's up to the RFP process and staff getting this stuff done. So can't support it. Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? The motion is to remove Wolverine Ave and Wolverine Place. Going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? All of council and the mayor opposed. Motion is defeated. Any more discussion in regards to number 6, Wolverine Ave and Place? Okay, I am going to skip 7 and I'm going to go to 8. And that's Spruce Ave and Peace River entrance. Replace the asphalt roadway at the entrance of Peace River Crescent, as well as remove the median that divides the traffic. Discussion? Councillor Dussault.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just had one question. Why are you removing the median?
Ms. Scott.
The Director of Operations can give you a summary of why we feel that is needed.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, the median at Peace River Crescent entrance, it has a couple of issues. We maintain it, first off. We mow the grass. It increases a level of difficulty when doing snow removal. Also, the residents that live along the entrance of Peace River Crescent, on either side, they are forced to do a legal U-turn to get into their driveways. So this would actually make the areas safer.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I was going to make the same comments, but it's better coming from staff. Councillor Norbury.
I'll make the same comments. It's when you see someone do that in there, it is like, something's going crazy. And I've looked at that, you know, driving past that median every single time, every single day. It's like, why is that there? It's creating a hazard for people who live there and everyone in the Crescent because, yeah, yeah, I've been behind people who have to park in there and it's like, that seems like really poor design. I mean, maybe on an engineering document, it seemed like it made sense. It looked nice to have that little patch of grass there, but it's, yeah, it's a problem. Thanks.
Thanks. Ms. Scott, if I may just ask, I know I read it out as Spruce Ave and Peace River entrance. Should it be Willow Ave? I want to know ahead of time before I do my next motion. Because you did turn off Willow, not off on Spruce. I just want clarification, just so everybody's aware, we're not doing Spruce Ave. It's the entrance, but it's just the way it reads. I just want to make sure as I make my motion at the end.
And I think it was worded that way because you would be coming off Spruce onto
No, you'd come off Willow.
River.
You'd come off Willow onto Peace.
No, but Spruce would be the through road onto Peace River, crossing Willow.
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, I'm good with
That's
that.
why we called it that way.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'll scratch out my correction.
Okay.
I trust staff. Any more discussion in regards to Spruce Ave and Peace River entrance? Okay, I'm just going to make a comment to that. I mean, Councilor Norbury kind of hit it, but we are going to see somebody hit there. I'm glad to see that staff has flagged that this might be something good to do to get rid of. To me, it's a hazard. It was mentioned by staff, but the time commitment when it comes to cutting a small piece of grass, and you know, to me, it makes sense. So I think it's a good capture by staff to relook at that traffic movement. Okay, moving on to number 9, Valley View Crescent. Resurface Valley View Crescent based on road condition as well as paving replacement schedule. Any questions? Okay, on to number 10, pardon me. Valley View Place, resurface Valley View Place based on roadway condition as well as paving replacement schedule. Questions? Okay. Okay, we're gonna go back up now to number 7. I just wanted to do the asphalt first. So number 7 is replacement of, I don't know how to say that one, Elgin Street Sweeper conveyor belt, sorry. Unit not needing replacement, however, it will need to have the conveyor system replaced. Discussion? Okay. Moving on to 11, fleet golf cart replacement. I don't believe it's a replacement, it's an additional, 10 additional golf carts. Discussion? Councillor Gillick?
I'm just wondering, so I look at the number here and I think, all right, we could maybe use this someplace else. I absolutely see the benefits. I see the cart rental revenue for the last 2 years, and I definitely see the revenue there and know that that can go to other things. What my question, I guess, is if we approve this and then we get to the operating budget next week, and I'm like, well, I want to do that, but I don't want to increase taxation. Can we take this out? Like, can I change my mind?
Well, you could, but this is coming from capital reserves, so you can't, well, you shouldn't.
Oh, I thought
You
it was,
shouldn't. You can do, council can make motions, but you should not take from reserves to offset operationals.
oh, I
Doesn't mean you can't, but you shouldn't.
well, okay, I'm obviously not, so I see that there's the reserve, but I also see the PRA. Is that not the PRA funding? Like, am I mixing that up?
I have it on this sheet here. I'm not sure unless somebody else have it. I'm
On
going
the
off my front sheet to
supplemental.
read it.
Oh, I'm looking at the supplemental.
They might not have had a thing. Ms. Scott, is it under PRA?
No.
Okay, so on,
I don't believe it. The spreadsheet shows that it is coming out of the capital reserve fund.
says that, but then on the, on the supplemental, it shows as expenses PRA.
And so I can, once I'm done giving my explanation, I can ask the Director of Finance if she would agree with my statement or has something additional to add. But on the original supplemental, that would have been submitted by staff, and that's how staff was proposing it be paid for. But then after being reviewed by the Director of Finance and myself, and wanting to use PRA for other projects, determined that paying for it from the capital reserve might be a better option. But again, I can ask the Director of Finance if she has anything else to add to that.
No, I think I think you answered that great. That's perfect. Okay, any other questions? Concerns? Okay. Dude. Oh, man, I got paperwork everywhere now, boys. Okay, the council does a pre-approval budget for paving Secunca Ave, Secunca Place, for paving Wolverine Ave and Wolverine Place, for paving and removal of the median Spruce Ave and Peace River entrance, Valley View Crescent, and Valley View Place. If I can get a seconder. Councillor Julik, discussion. Councillor Norberry.
Thank you, Mayor, your worship. I fully agree. If having a pre-approval process will get us ahead of the game of other municipalities who are also going to be putting out their RFPs May 16th. So I support the pre-approval process so we can get ahead of the game. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Ms. Scott, just want to confirm, pre-approval, after tonight's meeting, staff will move forward. Not saying tomorrow, but
So with the pre-approval process, again, maybe the Director of Finance can provide additional information by giving the pre-approval tonight. Does that mean that that staff can continue with that starting tomorrow or as soon as possible? So I want to be able to make sure we're giving you the correct information, and I think that's something that the Director of Finance can answer better.
Yeah, council making a pre-approval, I think the one comment I would recommend is that say that these amounts be included in the 2025, that council approve these amounts to be put into the 2025 to 2029 financial plan, 5-year financial plan. That way it's been approved, it's in the financial plan, and it gives staff the authorization to start.
thank you. Any other discussion from council? Okay, I'm going to make an amendment that we also add it to the 2025 to 2029 financial plan. Councillor Julik for second. Any discussion on the amendment? Call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Carried. Any more discussion on the amended motion? Ms. Scott, correct. The staff will work on this when they can after this meeting.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying tomorrow, I'm being honest. But the idea of this is actually to get the process moving so that other organization doesn't hold us up. And I guess just that comment there, if I may, is there another, after this motion's over, do we need another motion to make sure that that organization actually understands the priority to this? Or can we make sure that's known, the priority?
I don't think it needs to be a motion from council.
Okay. Any more discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Okay, and then I'll need the staff motion on this as well. Councillor Norberry.
That council approves the proposed operations 2025 capital and special projects list and include them in the 2025-2029 5-year financial plan, including multi-year projects, and include them in the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan.
Seconder. Councillor Dussault. Discussion. Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving on to the community services. Number 1, community center, hockey rooms and skaters lobby flooring. The rubber flooring in the hockey rooms and skaters lobby needs to be replaced as it's showing signs of wear and tear such as peeling and cracking. Discussion? Questions? Ms. Scott, I have a question. The life expectancy. So I'm aware that this, I'm not saying how old that floor is downstairs. I can't remember, but I know it has been replaced since I've moved to Tumbler Ridge. Is there a life expectancy for this flooring?
Yeah, the floor was last replaced about 10 years ago. Life expectancy is between 10 and 15 years.
Okay. So it's pretty much made its life expectancy. Okay. Now, is there, I guess my other comment would be, is there something else that's out there that would last longer? Probably more expensive, but is there something out there that would last longer and get a better bang for your buck?
And that is something that I can't answer, but I will ask the Director of Community Services if he can provide council with any information on alternatives.
Thanks, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. When I talked to my staff about this, I was told that this is the best material we have for this type of work.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. Again, I'm not against that, just those were the questions I had because I remember being replaced. I obviously was on council. Okay, any other questions in regards to the hockey rooms and skating lounge flooring? Okay, community center, pool, pilots, power supplies for pool chlorine. New pool pilot power supplies for the pool chlorine productions are needed at the aquatics department. The current chlorine system used to dispense chlorine into the water is about 15 years old. We have replaced parts in the past, but we are currently having issues with the display boards. They are not functioning properly in test mode and are causing intermittent problems. Any questions, discussion from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Mayor, I was just wondering what sort of warranty we have on these, and do we expect another 15 years from them if we replace them?
Ms. Scott?
I do not have information on the warranty, so again, I will ask the Director of Community Services if he has any information on the kinds of warranty on this equipment.
Thanks, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. So this, the pool pilots that we have, it's over 10 years old, so we don't have a warranty on that. However, for the new ones, we do have a warranty for 5 years, and the lifespan are 10 years for the new ones.
Follow up? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to Willow Hall Building automatic doors. The Willow Hall building's doors lack automated buttons for accessibility, which affects patrons with disabilities. We propose installing an automated system for the main entrance, back door, and the washroom doors. Discussion, Councillor Knoxena.
Thank you. Just wondering if this is a grant we've already received.
Ms. Scott.
No, it's not a grant we've already received. There will be a report coming forward to council at the February 3rd meeting to discuss a potential grant that we can apply for.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Hold on. Councillor Jilek.
As I see the Willow Hall building here, I'm questioning about the museum. As we've talked about the accessibility, is this just something that we'll be working on throughout the year? Or is this something we should be looking at for in the budget?
Yeah, so I've had that discussion as well with Ms. Scott. My understanding is there will be something coming, there will be a report coming back to council on that was asked for. It's just taking a bit of time from staff to really get dug in and get all the information. Yes, we have an accessibility committee that some of our DTR staff sits on with the PRD through Fort St. John. There's been some lacking information going back and forth. So we're going to see something internally from staff, because I did mention to Ms. Scott the same thing, like I was looking for it all so we could get a number there, a number that council would be happy with to try and rectify some of these accessibility concerns. So it doesn't mean that we cannot, it doesn't mean that we won't be able to add it later if we need to. Again, we might not be able to use PRA or that, but it might have to be a taxation item. And to be honest, accessibility, we need to, staff's working hard on. I know that. That's what Ms. Scott and I talked about. Okay. Any other discussion? I guess I don't have an issue with it. I appreciate staff coming forward with it. And I understand we're waiting for a report in regards to grant funding. I'm not, to me, I don't want to see this grant dependent. My understanding is if we could flag this, I don't want to say, just put it in the budget, let's move forward until I see the report. There might be other stuff that maybe is within the report that I need to see. But if we could flag this item, to me, it'll be up to council, but I'm going to put a motion that we flag it, because if it's after we have the other report that comes before council, if it's based on grants, I'm not, yeah, I want to apply for all the grants we can, but if we're not successful, we need to start moving forward on accessibility. So I'll put a motion in a minute. And the other comment I would make is automated doors on the washrooms. Is there a better option than automated doors on washrooms? Better to remove the door, better to do this. I was just in Vancouver, I go to Canada Place, there's no automatic doors on their washrooms. I made sure to check that because the budget papers were already out. So they don't have automatic doors on theirs. I mean, let's be a step ahead of Canada Place, and I'm 100% with that. But is there a better option? And to be honest, I haven't been to Willow Hall recently. I'm not sure if anybody from council has and how their bathrooms are set up. If if a door removal is a better concept, I'm not sure. But does automated doors fix the problems for the washroom facilities? Just want to make sure, because that was one of the comments made by a resident, was the access to the washrooms. For sure was mentioned. Doors heavy to open. Whatever, sure, automation helps that, for sure. But does it wear out the automated door openers because the door is too heavy? I don't know. I just want to make sure that as staff proceed through this, that we're getting the best bang for our buck and we're fixing the problems and not having to bring back other concerns. I don't have any issues with it. Great with it. And then the other concern I would, or maybe comment, and maybe it's a normal thing, but that's the back door to have automation for the back door. It just seems that could be a concern. I can understand if it's to open it from the inside to go out in regards to an emergency, but I know last time I was at the Willow Hall, that door is marked as an emergency exit. So it shouldn't be used as an entry door.
Yeah, so the Director of Community Services, along with our Occupational Health and Safety Officer, met with the users of Willow Hall and the operator of Willow Hall to fully assess all of the accessibility needs and wants and to determine what would work best there. And so I will ask the Director of Community Services to give council a summary of those discussions and their findings, and I'm sure he can provide information on what they felt was the best option for the washrooms and the conversations they had around the back doors.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Your Worship, there's no need to replace the back door. Okay, I know there was a request from the seniors to put an automated door there. We don't have to. For the washroom doors, one of the comments we got from the seniors is the door is quite heavy, and if they have difficulties walking or have a wheelchair, it will be way better for them to use the button to open the door and go in, right? In terms of privacy, there's a door there, right? Sorry, there's a wall that blocks. So if the door is open a little longer than it should, you still provide privacy for the people that are coming in and out of the washroom. But that is something we can look at again. If a solution is to put a lighter door, we can look into that as well. But the seniors, they did request if that would be possible to have an automated door for them there.
Okay, thank you for that, and I'm fine with it. Trying to think, it's been a while since I used the washing facilities at the Willow Hall. But the reason I mentioned about auto doors or removing the door, with the automated door, and you mentioned the wall thing, if I go in and I'm assisted with a wheelchair, is there room for me to hit the auto door, get in there with my wheelchair and actually able to get around? And I just can't remember that. So I just want to make sure that, when we, and I know I'm fine with the automated doors, even that, but that we can actually wheelchair accessible the bathroom facilities. I looked what the community center did upstairs. I mean, it is definitely accessible. They did a great job when they did the reno, and I just want to make sure as we move forward through all of the buildings, Willow Hall included, that we're making sure it's accessible for anybody that has any kind of accessibility, not just walking, but immobile issues, so that they are situated in a wheelchair.
So again, I will defer that question to the Director of Community Services to let council know whether wheelchair accessibility using the accessible doors was something that they took into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Your Worship. Yes, so as Ms. Scott mentioned, when the safety manager and we went to do the inspection there, we do follow the BC guidelines. So we did take measurements, and there is enough space for the door to be open and the wheelchair to come in and out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Councillor Knox-on and then Councillor Dussault.
Thank you. My comment was just if our solution was to take off a door, I would hope we could do that sooner rather than later, even if it was a temporary solution. Yep. Just when we hear from a very valued community member that they can't access the washroom in a building that is predominantly used by seniors, I would hope that we can make any accommodations possible sooner rather than later.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Dissona and Councillor Julik.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, those doors are quite heavy. I go to this senior center quite a bit, and those doors are quite hard to push open, especially if you're using a walker. It's hard to open that door at the same time unless you're going backwards. And then there again, they have a chance of falling backwards if they're not, being cautious of what they're doing. The other thing I would like to add is the back door, there is a step down. Was there also a look at putting a ramp there as well?
Okay. And I think, I can't speak on, and maybe staff wants to. I know they're doing this whole overview of all of them, and like I said, I know there was a committee that was set up, and I believe our previous intern CEO was one of the individuals that sat on it. And I just believe staff is trying to capture what was within that documentation and with the PRD and Fort St. John overseeing the committee. And I know staff has been working, and I'm not sure the date of the report, but I know Ms. Scott has said the report will be coming in front of council in the next bit. And I think we'll have a look then, but I definitely think staff's looking all, because it was also mentioned, one of council mentioned about the museum. I know there was concerns there about one of the exit doors, that there was a half-foot or a foot drop, and I know staff's looking at all that, so. Councillor Julik?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Noxana said. And not only do they have trouble accessing, there's people who are not using Willow Hall because they're concerned that they won't be able to use the washroom. So, yeah, sooner rather than later, for sure. And if we have to do something on this end to make that happen, I'm game to do so as well.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, I'm assuming we should probably wait for this report. Again, I haven't seen the report, but, I'll put a motion in a minute here to flag, but we should probably wait for that report, see what staff have all in it.
In the accessibility report to deal with accessibility in general, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion from council in regards to Willow Hall? Okay, before we get a motion no, we'll go that way first. Let's take the regular motion first. Councillor Norbury.
That council approve the proposed community services 2025 capital and special projects list and include them in the 2025 to 2029 five-year financial plan.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. I'm going to put a second motion out that, a motion that staff bring forward the Willow Hall automatic doors that is right now grant dependent, if it's going to stay grant dependent. If I can get a seconder. Councillor Norbury. Discussion. And the reason I say grant dependent, I know Ms. Scott had mentioned that there was a report coming up in the meeting. And I think just until we hear what that one is, because, and I get it, we can say it's grant dependent, staff can apply for the grant. If they don't get the grant, it doesn't go ahead. But to me, I'm willing to put the money in there. If they get the grant, perfect, don't spend the money. But until we see that other report, I think it's worth just putting that on a flag for now. Any other discussion? I'm going to call the question on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay. 2026 Capital Protective Services Fire Hall Project. The Fire Hall building is at its life expectancy. It does not provide space required by current fire department services, nor does it comply with modern occupational health and safety best practices for the firefighters, including those listed by WorkSafe BC. Don't think I need to read the bottom part, Ms. Scott?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion. Oh, Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion that council receive the draft 2026 capital special project report for discussion.
Yeah, right on. Thanks. Don't stop me in the middle of it or anything. Seconder. Councilor Noxana. All in favor? All right, I was just moving forward. Councilor Norbury. Any discussion? No discussion? I'm going to make a comment. I think, in my opinion, is that even with asking staff to bring forward the report. I mean, obviously, this process is eventually going to move forward. I would assume numbers may change in regards to the total project once information comes back. But to me, we still need to proceed by having money in budgets to move a project forward. My opinion, if you're not in favor of moving the project forward, then you would vote opposed. But again, we've given direction to staff to move the project forward by reaching out to the other emergency partners to see what their needs would be and if they're interested, as well as maybe look at a maybe different option or so. So that would be my comments. Any other discussion? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried.
You didn't make the motion yet.
Oh, right on. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kawaka. It's getting late. So all motion that council approve the proposed Protective Services 2026 capital list, including multi-year projects that include them in the 2025-2029 five-year financial plan.
Thank you. Seconder, Councilor Julich. Yeah, feel free to stop me right in the middle of that next time. Wow. Okay, any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. All right. Let me find my sheets here. Next motion, proposed 2026 capital projects. Report dated January 20, am I in the right one here? Geez, no. Discussion, you made that one, thanks. Right on, thanks. I think I'm asleep. Okay, operations. This is to create an opportunity to have a machine that is better suited for the district, as it is not only a Canadian-made machine. The parts are also sourced in Canada as well. The current unit that the district has is a critical piece of equipment, multiple needs within the district. In 2023, the district purchased a Bobcat Toolcat to help alleviate the pressure of the continuous downtime with the Willie. And the project is a trackless municipal sidewalk machine. Discussion? Councilor Norbury?
I'll motion that council approve the proposed operations 2026 capital and special projects list and include them in the 2025 to 2029 five-year financial plan.
Seconder, Councilor Noxana. Discussion. I have some questions now. Ms. Scott, can we just get maybe an overview from staff in regards to the continuous downtime with the Willie? Like, I know previously in 2023, council supported a purchase of a second unit to help alleviate some of the issues that we were having and to make sure we had available equipment to do sidewalks, because we were having some heavy concerns. Where are we at with these heavy concerns? Because I see that we're projecting waiting until 2026.
So yes, I will ask the Director of Operations to provide council with additional information about the ongoing issues and concerns with the Willie and how it affects service, and how the proposed trackless machine for 2026 is intended to address those.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, I actually have some notes for us as far as an example of downtime. In 2024, there was a coupling that we had to wait for the Willie. The machine was down for an estimated 6 weeks of time as we were waiting for a part to be shipped from Finland. We had a hydraulic valve body that needed replacement. It was down for an estimated 3 weeks of time, waiting on parts for that. Hydraulic cylinders on the unit, they needed to be replaced as well. The district was able to have the cylinders rebuilt by outside contractors, but for remaining hoses and whatnot, the unit was down for an approximate 3 weeks as well for that. Wheel seal was needed for replacement. Parts had to come from Europe. There were no parts in Canada, so the unit was down for 2 to 3 weeks there. 2023, we had an alternator fail. There was only one in Canada. If we were not able to get parts sourced in Canada, being that there was only one, the part was manufactured in Slovakia. So the district had the old alternator. It was rebuilt so that we were able to have one on the shelf in case we ran into issue again. The unit was down for 2 to 3 weeks as well for that. There was a hydraulic hose, the main hydraulic hose for the unit. It failed while on Mackenzie. We were unable to get a hose in town or surrounding area because the fittings are European. We needed to source out from a distance. The list does go on, but those are some of our issues that we're having. When the machine goes down, it's not an overnight fix. It's down for a week. It's down for 2 weeks, et cetera. The idea behind the trackless, first off, they are a Canadian-made machine. There are parts that are sourced in Canada. They are manufactured in Canada. What was explained to me was that if you have a call in before 1 o'clock Eastern time for your parts are usually shipped out that day. That's pretty beneficial to the community. And a lot of our neighbors have these machines. Dawson Creek, I can pull up some numbers here. Puscoopi has 1 unit. They will be replacing another one this year. Dawson Creek has 4 of them with multiple attachments. Taylor has 1 unit, and Fort St. John has 2 of these units.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, if the starter was not able to be sourced, as there was one left, what would the wait time be? Approximately, not that we could know because it's obviously made somewhere in another country.
So yes, I will ask the Director of Operations if he can provide the answer you're looking for.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, all I would be doing is estimating, and if I go through the history, we would be multiple weeks.
Can you give me a number, Ms. Scott? Just a guesstimate. And I understand this is not going to be true. You could say 12, but it might not be true.
Again, I'll ask the Director of Operations if he has an estimate of the number of weeks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott. Being that we were down for 3 weeks and had one in the country, I would double that.
Thank you. The reason I asked that, Ms. Scott, is going to be my next questions. Don't know the time of the months or time of the year this was down. If this happened on a major snowstorm, where would we be at within our community for sidewalk removal of snow?
Yeah, and I think that was part of your previous question too. If we're putting this project off till 2026, what is our intention to deal with potential downtime in 2025 should it occur? So again, that's something I'll ask the Director of Operations if he can provide an information on.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. This did happen during winter. Never happens when it's pleasant out, but sorry, but being the we have pushed this to 2026. The purchase that you allowed me to make in 2023 to be able to purchase a Bobcat Toolcat, that is our backup, so to speak. So I'm hoping that we are able to continue to use the Willie Sidewalk machine, but when it's time to retire it, you guys have given me the opportunity.
Okay, thank you for that. The reason I asked that, and Ms. Scott, you kind of mentioned it, like, what are we looking at in 2025? So I guess, Director of Public Works or Operations mentioned it. Do we see any significant concerns or issues in regards, don't get me wrong, we do an amazing job in Tillman Ridge for snow removal. There's no knock at snow removal. Did we have, the reason I ask this is I've seen I've had a lot of people reach out in regards to our walking paths and accessibility trails and such. And what concerns me is, one, sometimes we don't know when a piece of equipment may be down. So my understanding, and I've noticed it myself, when we have a fairly large dump of snow, we see both machines out. We see the new one that was mentioned, but we also see the Willie out. When this was down throughout the winter, did we see significant backlog in getting accessibility trails opened up in our sidewalks?
So again, I will ask the Director of Operations if he can provide any information to answer that question for you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, the entire process was slowed down. One way that we have tried to mitigate that is we now start crews earlier in the day to give us more time throughout the day to get the task completed.
Okay, thank you. One last question before I go to council. Sorry, I'm hogging this one. Ms. Scott, can you tell me, do we have funds in the capital reserve funds if I was to put it, if it was to be supported and pushed forward for an earlier purchase?
For an earlier purchase. That's a question I will have to ask the Director of Finance if she can answer.
Mayor and council, yes, you could move this to 2025 if you so choose. There is funding available in the reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Julick and then Councillor Hoffman. Oops, it didn't come on. All right.
I appreciate you asking the questions you were asking, because I don't think my head went there until partway through your discussion, and then I was like, oh, I see what he's doing, and I agree. We talked about this last year, we talk about it this year. With the type of winters we've been having, the sidewalks can be treacherous, and I would agree with you. We have amazing staff who do amazing things in our community for winter, and I don't want to hobble them. I would rather move this forward and put it into this year's budget as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, but in the end, I was wondering, could we even guarantee this price for another year, or is this a current price? Like, is there a backlog and we're not going to get it in 2 years, for 2 years anyways? Or do we just, and I also am in agreement that we just move this up and get it ASAP. I do not believe in the Willie's reliability with that list.
Ms. Scott, in regards to delivery time and cost?
I mean, the
No
supplier,
tariffs.
the supplier market is hard to try and gauge or estimate what it's going to look like. But I will ask the Director of Operations if he has any information on what the expected delivery time is, or if he has any idea of what the guarantee of this current price would still be if we waited another year to purchase.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Unfortunately, we will be taking best guess moving forward. I have put a contingency on the product, but as far as the lead time, I was informed that it's a 3 to 4 month lead time.
Okay, thank you. Just before I go there, just got a couple questions. I don't think we do it often enough, and maybe it's not good practice. And, I look forward to hearing from staff. But like, I was just mentioned that Pouce may be looking to also acquire one of these units. We live in a fairly large area with multiple land kilometers, but not many residents, fairly close communities. I wondered if we ever look as a municipality to reach out. I just heard Pouce Coupe's buying one. Anybody else in the region buying one, where maybe all of a sudden we're looking for 5 or 6 of these units and we all get savings? Because we're not sending this out to an RFP, we're literally ordering it. So it'd be no different to me than our fleet when we look at pickups. If all of a sudden a DTR is gonna buy one of these units, possibly, and other communities are, do we ever communicate within the Peace region and say, oh, hey, listen, this is what we're looking at for purchasing, we're just waiting for council to make the decision or make their minds up? Maybe we can put in multiple units at the same time and actually save dollars for us?
I know that the Director of Operations does have good working relationships with his peers and counterparts in other municipalities. Has he had that specific discussion other than with Pouce Coupe that I can't answer? So I will ask him if he can answer that.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. No, I have not had those discussions with other communities.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, any more discussion? Okay. Geez, I gotta think of where I'm at. Okay, that council approved the proposed operation 2025 capital and special project list. What? Oh, you did already motion it, thank you. Okay.
Halfway through.
So we're, oh man. So we're better off, so in my opinion, I don't want to amend your motion. I'll be honest, thanks, Councilor, let me know you put the motion on for, obviously it is, time to go. I can't support it. I think this is a concept that I'd like to see move forward. I've heard from staff that we do have some funds available. And when I look at snow removal within our community, I think it's very, very important. This is only probably part of the list that was given to us, but we're looking like almost 3-4 months of downtime. Obviously over multiple years, but I don't know if we tracked it fully, so right now I won't support it. Any more discussion? I'm going to call the question. The motion on the floor is that council approve the proposed operations 2026 capital and special project list and include them in the 2025 and 2029 2029 financial year plan, whatever, 5-year financial plan. Wow. All in favor? I didn't sleep last night. Opposed? All of council and the mayor opposed. Motion is defeated. I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we add the trackless municipal sidewalk machine to the 2025 capital project list with the funds coming out of capital reserve funds and added into the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan. Seconder, Councillor Julik. Discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kaka. You made very valid points, and I'm in full support. Perhaps what I'm proposing would come after this motion, but would it be worthwhile to put it in the pre-approved projects as well to get that 3-4 month head time? I don't know. Just a question.
Can you make an amendment right now?
I'll amend that we add this to the pre-approved projects.
Okay. Seconder on the amendment. Councillor Noxana. Discussion on the amendment. Call the question. All in favor? Amendment carries. Any more discussion on the amended motion? And I just want to get clarity from staff that we, even though the amendment didn't say it, the original motion said about the 2025-2020 financial plan that it's accessible or it's appropriate.
I'll ask the Director of Finance if she can weigh in on whether the wording of that motion is still accurate and appropriate.
Yes, Your Worship, you have clearly stated that it is to be improved and put into the 2025 to 2029 financial plan as a 2025 transaction. So I will be putting that forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, 7.3, allocation of the 2025 Peace River Agreement funding. Report dated January 28, 2025 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the allocation of the 2025 Peace River Agreement funding. Recommendation? Councillor Noxana?
The council approve the PRA funding allocation as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Rousseau. Discussion? Ms. Scott, have we spent it all?
We are intending to fully allocate the 2025 PRA allotment, yes.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Any notice of motion? Ms. Scott, if I may, I know we as mayor and council or the elected officials already had our opportunity to submit maybe things we want to see for the budget or ideas. Is there still an opportunity to submit an idea?
I will ask the Director of Finance to provide that answer.
Council can always add other items. However, at this point in time, whether staff can get the funding or the information is the challenge.
Okay, appreciate that. Ms. Scott, tonight would be the night to throw the idea out there. I mean, I could have done it on a notice of motion, but I mean, really and truly, we're not bringing back capital budget.
I am not recalling which one you're talking about.
It's probably a new item. New idea from mayor and council for capital.
Then yes.
Okay, perfect. I apologize, but I think I may have forwarded this off to Ms. Scott, and I may not have. But I've had some conversations with some avid golfers. I received an email when I was away, so I definitely did not forward it to council, didn't have an opportunity. I never thought of this idea. I've only ever thought about it being proposed from council side of, let's build another golf cart storage building. Just like we need a new building, build another building. Their idea actually, there's quite a few of them. I think there's about 8 of them that came to me, is instead of looking at building a building that they understand that the cost that was put forward previously was quite high, is actually on the backside of the golf cart storage building we have, is fencing around it and maybe a few plugs on the sidewall for anybody that has an electric cart, but have a gate with a lock and rent those spots out. So to me, I just wanted to tell council the idea, but I'm just gonna ask, like, to me, I just wanna put a motion that we just, is it doable? Like, I just wanna know, like, put a motion out there, is it doable and approximate cost? So their idea is just, they're not even looking for cover. They're not looking for any kind of roof on it, just a fence compound with possible plugs on the outside of the building.
Yeah, I believe that came as a supplemental request from staff last budget year, and I believe it came with an estimated cost of about $25,000. But because that was before my time, I'll ask the Director of Community Services if he can provide council with information on that.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Your worship, yeah, we did come forward last year for a study. It was 25,000 just for the study to build a new building, right? It wasn't like fencing, like you mentioned. I tried to get a hold of some contractors to get a quote. I just want to clarify, because we can do the fencing, right? One of the questions the contractors had is, do we need concrete base? Do we need a roof for that as well? Or are you just thinking about the fencing the area? So I'm just trying to get more clarification so we can get the right quote for that.
Yeah. Ms. Scott, my understanding from the people that have contacted me is they are looking for a fence on the outside just to secure their curts, obviously with a gate so it can be locked. And then just some plugins on the outside of the wall for people that may have electric curts. No roof. I'm not saying it needs to be possibly cement. To me, that's staff would have to make sure that we're protecting the investment that's already there, because worst thing I want to see is if council agrees with the idea that we actually harm the building that the DETR built. That would be my only concern. So at this time, I'm just going to put a motion that staff bring back a report with approximate cost to install a fenced compound with electric plugs on the outside of the golf cart storage building facing the Murray River. I'm not sure what side of the building that would be. I would say west, but I could be wrong on the dimension there. Seconder on the motion. Councilor Norbury, discussion. Councilor Jilic.
So is this a notice of motion or this is an actual motion?
This is an
Because
actual
we're
motion.
doing the capital, all right. For me, I would want to see what the revenue is on the enclosed building, and the reason I say that is because I know we've talked often about the heating and stuff, but I've never had it really come back to show us whether or not we want to take the heating out of that building. And so, that would be one of my concerns. What is the revenue? Is it worth I'm absolutely in favor. I know this would be for the residents in our community, so like for me, that, like, it's one step up already. My other concern with it not being enclosed, I know that we have liability all the time. That's not my concern is more, I understand that the residents think that this will be okay. The steps that concern me are, how do we keep it locked? How do we change the keys? Or who are the key holders? Do we do, you know what I mean? Like the logistics of it is where my mind goes. And if there's added cost to that, like I am absolutely in favor of looking into it. Those are some of my concerns and maybe something to think about when they're doing up the report as well.
Yeah, and I think they can capture it, and so they do it at other golf courses. This is where it came. It came from avid golfers. They brought it to me. I never even thought about it. All I thought about was always building another building. And at first, when they first brought it to me, I'm like, well, we'll have to rent spots. Like, we're not going to do that without. So to me, compared to the cost that is on the inside with heat and all that, it's totally different. And like I said, they're not looking for cover, right? They're looking just something to secure the curts. And I'll be honest right now, if you go down there during golf season, there's curts tied to the trees back there. They're chained to the trees because individuals don't want to take them home. So this was an option that was thrown out by a couple residents that other people they have talked to had come forward. I just think it might be an option, and if staff can look into it, obviously capture some of your comments in regards to keys and stuff like that. But I mean, it could be another revenue generator for the DTR side of it, where we take those funds and actually start up. I can't remember what staff called it, but an actual line where we actually put it in until we can afford another building. Because I think it's important that we have that. But okay, any more discussion? Call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Council business, we're going to skip that. I was going to use that one for my next motion, but for that motion. Questions, Ms. Scott, from emails?
None received.
Sorry?
There are none received.
Thank you. Adjournment, Councillor Noxena.
That the January 28th, 2025 budget council meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councillor Norberry. All in favor? Carried.